Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. My guest is Mr. Willie Southall. Mr. Southall has been promoting the medicinal herb hyssop for many years, and even a great idea like a medicinal herb must be promoted. And if anyone in the United States is most responsible for the widespread use of the medicinal herb hyssop, it's Mr. Willie Southall. Mr. Southall, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And the medicinal herb hyssop, so for my guests who don't know what hyssop is, please tell us what the herb hyssop is and what it does for us.
The hyssop herb is a little plant. It grows about 1 foot and a half. Green leaves, purple flowers, and it's yang. Out of all the plants on the planet, hyssop is yang. There's only about 2 more.
So yang being kind of a masculine principle.
Yang, I'm sorry, from the Oriental medicine.
Right.
Yang means if a person is sick,
Yes.
like cancer, their cells spread and they get ill.
Yes.
Whereas the hyssop is yang. So if you took the hyssop, the cells would clean themselves and they could all come back together the way they should be. And it makes you strong.
I see.
Whereas yin is weak and things come apart.
Yin is more sugary and passive, is that it?
Yeah, acid. And I guess you would say the hyssop is more alkaline.
Now, let me just mention this by way of perspective. The medicinal herb, which we call echinacea, which is very popular in natural food stores, that medicinal herb is only popular now, and it became popular, I think, about 1970, when Michael Tierra, the herbalist, promoted echinacea, and to some extent golden seal, but mostly echinacea, and he revived it from when the eclectic physicians were using echinacea around the turn of the 20th century and before. So one guy, Michael Tierra, promoted echinacea and made it very big, and you are responsible for promoting hyssop. In my opinion, hyssop is really, you have made it a well-known herb. How did you discover the power of hyssop?
My dad was a minister.
Yes.
And when I was a little baby, and every Sunday, practically in churches, and even today, people say, "Purge me with hyssop, and I'll be clean. Wash me, and I'll be whiter than snow." And I was, all my life, I was sick. I couldn't go out in the snow and play with like other kids and everything. In the rain, I would always get sick. So I grew up sickly, went through high school, and I guess college and the military, and somehow or another, I got to the herbs, and somebody mentioned the hyssop.
But after you already finished schooling and you served 2 years in the military, or did you do more than 2 years?
Yeah. Well, actually, I ran into a little guy they call hippies. They were the smart ones, and so I asked him one day. I said, "Look, why is it some people get sick sometime and other people are sick all the time?" And so he says, "Did you ever hear of the grain people?" And so here I was raised down south where, we did whatever mom said to survive. So he said, they don't eat any meat. They eat grains. And so I said, why would they do a stupid thing like that?
Okay.
And
yeah.
So he says, elephants are bigger than you are. They don't eat no meat. Horses are bigger than you are. They don't eat no meat. So then I began to listen. So anyway, I with that, I went off to a herb garden here in Los Angeles, and they showed me the hyssop, and I said, why isn't anybody using this? And
What
so,
years were this, Mr. Southall? What year was this?
I'm sorry.
What year was this?
Uh, I guess you could say it was about 80, the 80s,
Okay,
early
80s.
80s.
Sure. Okay.
Mhm. So, so I began to study this herb,
Mhm.
and then I thought about what King Solomon said: "Purge me with hyssop, I'll be clean. Wash me, and I'll be whiter than snow."
Wait, what does Solomon say? Say that once again.
He said, "Purge me with hyssop,
Purge me with hyssop. Yes.
and I shall be clean.
Mhm.
Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow."
All right.
And then, his son grew up, and when he did, which was, well, there was a conflict between, I guess, Samson and Delilah,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't mention anything about hyssop. But then here's King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the hyssop was probably what helped him maintain himself, because actually, female being yin, they actually take your energy and your strength away. But whereas when you use the hyssop, they can take your strength away.
All right. All right. And so, okay, so at this point, so now I've read, of course, and I've used hyssop for colds and flu. It seems very good for colds and flu. What do you promote the use of hyssop for?
Uh, Hyssop, since I've been studying it, I've found out that it is good for almost anything. I guess that's where that yin and yang thing is the body,
Sure.
making the body strong.
Yes.
Because colds and flus, you can get over them in maybe a day or so.
Right.
In fact, I've had people with pneumonia using hyssop, and almost overnight it goes away. And when I was a kid, I had what they call 7-day pneumonia, and so with the hyssop overnight, with certain herbs, you can get rid of it.
Now, by the way, this is the hyssop that you produce, Mr. Southall. This is your hyssop, and this is in a glycerin tincture. There is no alcohol in this. Is that correct?
There's no alcohol in it. It's made naturally, and that's is what most of our, I guess, our herbs and foods should be naturally, rather than putting. Well, a lot of people put like alcohol and other stuff, but this is like you're preserving dead bodies and things. So I'm saying
Right. I agree with you. Right.
it kills all the bad bacteria that
Right.
eats up things. So this way, with the herb like that, you can drink as much as you want or as little as you want. And not only colds and flu, but even serious things like uh, cancer and AIDS. And we've been in stuff like this, and I have information on stuff like that.
So you're saying that the hyssop is a non-specific remedy. Certainly, colds and flu are big issues. It works on that, and in your opinion, based on your experience, it is also helpful for cancer patients and for patients with immune problems we call AIDS. Is that your experience?
Yeah, actually, I guess when you mentioned, like we mentioned the yin and yang, that's the Oriental thing.
Right. Right.
So when you mention yin, this is the illnesses, all these different illnesses what make people sick and they can't move. They even, you know, uh, whereas when you eat the herb hyssop or drink the herb hyssop, then it brings the body parts back together. It cleans, it gives you strength.
Hmm. And let's say I had a bad cold. I'm an adult. How much hyssop would I use?
It doesn't take very much for just a cold, maybe a few tablespoons full or something like that.
Say like a tablespoon in the morning, a tablespoon at night, something like that?
Sure.
And should I mix it in warm water, or what should I do with it? Just take
Well,
a spoon?
if you do put it in anything, you do put it in water. Sometimes I put it very delicious, putting it over the ice cubes.
Oh, really? It tastes good?
Whatever, yeah. Uh-huh.
So hyssop tastes good in your opinion?
Oh, this hyssop tastes really good.
Okay, that's good. Because also echinacea tastes good, and that may be one reason why it's popular. I mean, children like it because it tastes good. Whereas golden seal, an important medicinal herb, has kind of a bitter taste. It's a bitter principle, so it doesn't taste quite as exciting, really. So it's a little bit less popular, but still works good. But you're saying that the hyssop, in your opinion, tastes good.
It's delicious. It's
All right.
delicious. It's simple. Some people tell me it's sweet, like you put it over thing.
Hmm.
But the thing is, it's not like a sugar sweet. It's a healthier one.
I got you. I got you. And so you said after you finished the service and schooling, suddenly you became what, a vegetarian?
Uh, I actually became a vegetarian way before that. I met some kids doing that, and so I went more to vegetable because I was thinking we were getting, uh, bad things from the meat and stuff.
Mhm. Right.
And I went to using whole grains, and I guess that came from the Chinese people. They lived on brown rice for
Sure, sure,
centuries.
sure.
And so, but then, like with the Japanese, they also live on grains and vegetables, but they also know which animals that are more healthier for you.
Sure.
In the Bible, the Bible tells you to not to have what is it? Scavengers. He took all the pigs and he run them over the cliff, and whereas other ones like the salmon, they're pink, yeah, which is a yang thing, bring things together. So I'm saying if you know enough about your foods, your animals, the different animals and everything, then you can make your selection to keep yourself healthy the way you want to be.
Sure, sure. And so, are you vegetarian now, by the way, can I ask? Or you're not?
Not totally.
No.
I still do mostly vegetables and grain, but then also, things
You
like
eat
you
fish?
say, the pink ones,
No.
salmon and some mix them. When you know how to mix them right, you can stay healthy and happy.
I think so too, by the way. I'm not a vegetarian. I also eat fish and chicken and turkey, and I'm very happy to do that now. And I think that the animal protein foods are appropriate for most of us most of the time. And I think also that they stabilize blood sugar in a way that eating, tofu, tempeh, or lentils, or chickpeas, or cashews, while those foods are good, just don't, or they didn't for me anyway. So I am not a vegetarian. So you needn't be embarrassed if you're not vegetarian. It's okay.
Mm.
And may I ask, were there any particular authors that you read that really influenced you in the use of medicinal herbs or in wellness?
Uh, you know, well, all the old timers like Socrates and all the old doctors and stuff,
Sure.
they actually told you what foods to eat and what to get off of and what not to. And so that's when I was speaking of the different ones, like in the Bible, they mentioned they run the pigs off the cliff, and they said not to eat with the split hoof, and all these things.
Hmm.
So when you take that in today's world and you look at the book and the history and all the animals and things, you can kind of easily select which animals and which vegetables and stuff that are good for you.
Sure, sure. Now hyssop. Is hyssop native to the United States, or did the indigenous American Indians introduce it to us, or did the Europeans bring it over? Where does hyssop come from?
Yeah, it come from I guess you can say the major part, the biblical, like Moses and the Bible
Yeah, so it
and
was used
and
then for sure.
Jerusalem.
Okay, so it has a long history of use. Yes.
Yeah. Uh, that I guess that's the main place because with Moses, when he freed the children of Israel, that's when he gave them the hyssop.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not know.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was the big one.
that's where it's first kind of mentioned in the Bible.
I guess that was the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, freedom. So everybody wants freedom, but when you get freedom from for health, it makes you feel a lot better. And that's what they did in the Bible. And that's where me and Erwin Zucker went over to Jerusalem.
That's
And when we went over there, we went to the walls. It's a great picture of that where uh, me and Erwin, we was at the walls. And there is where they say the hyssop grew out of the walls.
Oh, really? I see.
Mm. And so we went to the fields where they grew it. And we find even today, they have a lot of foods. In fact, the Jewish people have some every day. They sprinkle it on food and stuff like that. And I guess we went to different villages where they had the hand on the wall, and it was a remarkable experience. We even had a restaurant. They actually served us hyssop, and
Oh,
it
no
was really
kidding.
good.
Alrighty. Now, by the way, I see the hyssop this is a hyssop that you sell actually. By the way, how can we contact you to buy and read your book and to buy your hyssop syrup without alcohol? What's the contact information?
323-465-3221 is the phone number.
Let me have that once again.
323-465-3221.
Okay, great.
And then there's a email. Everybody likes email. WIL hyssop, HYSSOP at hotmail.com.
All right, that sounds good too. Now, I noticed that your hyssop is in, an alcohol-free tincture. Is the use of capsules also good, or is it less good in your opinion, or what's your thinking on capsules for hyssop?
Uh, Actually, use the capsule. So actually, if you do the dried hyssop, it takes more of it,
I
and
see.
you can even drink the tea for cleaning your body out and everything. And I just think that when you when you preserve it naturally, like the fine wines in Europe, that's
Uh-huh.
the way this is done.
With
You put
glycerin. Yeah.
Yeah, you just put it into a water and let it age, and when a certain time come about, this is natural, and you can drink all you want. And in fact, people that have very, very serious illnesses, they would take one of those bottles a day for 12 days. And in the Bible, they only use 7 days,
Really?
and they got rid of leprosy. So
Okay.
I guess I'm not saying too much when I say 12 days.
All right. And so you're not making a claim that comes from the Bible that hyssop was one of the remedies or the remedy for leprosy?
Yeah, according to the Bible, and it was gone at the end of 7 days.
Well, that's
So
okay.
it was powerful then. I guess it's powerful now.
And may I ask you, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but you have been working as an herbalist, as an educator for a long time. Have you been influential with family or friends or acquaintances as far as helping people regain their health with various issues using hyssop and other ideas?
Yes, I have seen. Well, I guess it was me doing my research, but I think one of the first ones that I saw was my cousin, and she weighed like, I guess she weighed 100 and maybe 80 pounds or so, and she lost about 65 pounds in less than I think it was about 2 weeks or so.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's very fast. Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, when it cleans your
What, this woman was diabetic or something?
uh I yeah, but the thing is, all that goes away too.
Right, right.
Uh,
Theoretically, right.
my sister-in-law was a diabetic. She had a blood sugar of 895,
Okay. Hmm.
and within 12 days, she went back to the doctor. The doctor says, "Don't take anything. You're well." And all she took was for 12 days.
Was hyssop.
So almost any ailment, in other words, when your body cleans itself and you give it clean food and all this right herbs and everything, sunlight, green vegetables, I guess God or the body takes care of itself.
Well, you must be a very good teacher to influence family because it's very tough to influence family. Have you noticed family likes to say, "Don't talk to us about nutrition. Let's talk about something else." Okay, you must be good at it. May I ask, did you have any influence with your mother and father when it came to herbs, or did they teach you and they were into it already, or how did that go?
I was just getting into that when they left here, but
Hmm.
but now I had 5 sisters and brothers, and sometimes they don't think we're too smart,
Sure.
so they're all gone.
Oh, I'm
They're
sorry.
all gone.
Okay.
I'm the only one in the family.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Kids, but I feel great.
So they really didn't live very long then, did they?
I'm sorry.
Your brothers and sisters didn't really live very long.
Uh, no, in fact, my baby brother lived the shortest. He lived to be 50 something,
Hmm.
and they were all. My oldest sister was the one that lived to be about 80, but they didn't quite think I was. I had it all together.
Oh, that is unfortunate. Yeah, it'd be nice to influence brothers and sisters. Oh well, oh well, it's too bad. What about your children? Do your children listen to you on wellness?
Yeah, I have a older son. He's 50s, and a baby son, which is what, 10 years old.
Oh, you do? Oh, good
Yeah.
for you. Oh, good for you. So the hyssop does work. Is that what you're telling me? The hyssop actually does work. Oh, good for you.
I really give it credit for doing a good job.
Okay, very good.
Hmm.
And may I ask, I don't want to put you on the spot, can I ask, what is your age?
81.
81. Oh, yeah. Well, you seem very vigorous for 81, don't you? You seem very vigorous. And you
Yeah.
look very youthful, too.
Thank you. I feel great, and I hope more people will uh, look into these herbs, and this may be one of the ones people use. It's not the only one. There's a lot of different ones. And like when they get into this thing about the yin and yang, this is when you get to the clean ones
Hmm.
and the ones that make you sick and the ones that don't make you sick and all that. And so they can study all the plants that we eat, and uh, the health does improve immensely when you learn which green plant and grain to use. The Orientals and the Japanese, they live. Uh, I looked at people, they looked at me be 80, 90, or 100 years old, and they still get around like kids when I went over there with the military. It was really
Oh, you were
interesting.
in Japan?
I was in Japan and I was in Korea.
What years was that?
What was that? Oh boy, it's been a long time.
It was like 52, 53?
Yeah, that's right. That's when I got out of high school
Okay.
and went to Korea. And uh, it it was quite an education. The people didn't have money to buy food and stuff, junk like we have, and they lived on grains and the
And
little
fish.
green stuff they grow.
Yeah.
And fish. Yeah.
Right. And fish. Yeah, fish actually, of course, we're polluting the oceans, which is really a problem. But still, humans have always been fish eaters. If human beings eat fish, we do good on fish. So what can I say? I
That's
mean,
right.
I was vegetarian for a long time, and I'm not a vegetarian now.
Hmm.
And I feel good when I eat fish, and fish I think has always been part of the original diet of humans. Humans are smart enough to eat fish, and live on the coast where the climate's more moderate. And of course, the Orientals, the Japanese, etc., are known for eating fish and sea vegetables, and were known traditionally for having long life. Now they're eating our fast food, so I'm not sure their health is still as good. But at one time, their health was very good because they ate carefully. So,
Well, that's the main thing. In fact, that was the point in my book. I have a list of all of the herbs and the plants that are yin and yang,
hmm
and all the animals and fish that are yin and yang. And if you get on these different plants that are yang and the seafood and the animals that are yang, you actually feel much healthier and stronger immediately.
yeah, immediately you mean like really in say under a week, people can feel just better, but much better, right?
Oh yeah, within a few days. And I used to be sick all the time. And when I met the hippie and we talked about this grains and stuff, uh, would you believe I went to macrobiotics, and within I think it was 2 weeks, I could go out in the rain and the snow. I even went over to the Alps and on top of them and everything, and didn't get sick. So in other words, when you eat things that are right for you, you don't get sick near as often.
I completely agree with that. And then some people, people have had that experience that you and I have had would think, oh yeah, for sure, that's absolutely true. And other people who might be hearing this broadcast might think, really? We had never heard that before. It turns out to be actually pretty simple, doesn't it?
AI is. And like I said, there are places where you get it, but since I've been collecting this information, like I said, I have made up a list of all the seafood that are yang and all the plants that are yang and all the animals because, he told us not to eat the split hoof.
Right.
But then there are other animals that are yang, like in the Bible, I think the first gift was the lamb,
I see.
which was accepted over the vegetarian.
Okay.
I think it's all knowledge.
Yes. And
Hmm.
is that all in your new book on hyssop?
Yes,
This is a new edition that's being printed shortly. Is that it?
there's charts in there, and there are pictures in there, and all that. Which is, and not only that, there's a lot of stories about the different people with all the different illnesses,
Right.
how uh, how they go away, and most of the serious illnesses, like I said, it only takes like today, I said 12 days. In the Bible, they said leprosy was 7 days. So, I changed it a little bit with my herb, but I guess they had more back close to the earth and nature.
Yes, maybe, possibly, possibly. And once again, please give us your contact information to buy your hyssop tincture form and the book Hyssop Superior Healing Power, Willie Southall.
Phone number 323-465-3221.
Let me have that once again.
323-465-3221.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure talking to Willie Southall. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Okra Group Personal Chefs, proud sponsors of Let's Do Lunch with Chef Richard Petty. Okra Group Personal Chefs have been providing quality gourmet culinary services to distinctive homes since 2004. For a free evaluation of dietary needs, call 818-850-9584. That's 818-850-9584. We will design a custom menu that fits your needs. So call us today, Okra Group Personal Chefs. Let us personally make you a dish.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is Barbara Charis, who has been teaching about the ideas of nutrition and exercise for a very long time, and who has the a very interesting background in that her brother-in-law, Reg Lewis, the champion bodybuilder, who as a young man was a bodybuilder for Mae West in Mae West's nightclub review, convinced Barbara in the very early 1960s that indeed nutrition was important, and Barbara read these books and thought, oh my goodness, this is important. And Barbara's been working in the field ever since. Barbara Charis, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure.
Be here.
My pleasure. So was it really 1960, 1961?
1961. Reg handed me books, and he said, start reading. And I kind of scoffed because I was totally into the idea that the doctors had all this education.
Sure.
And I thought to myself, what do you know?
Right. Well, okay. It seems fair at the time to say that, for sure. It was 1961 was a long time ago.
1961, but I opened up the book, and the first thing I saw was sugar-created hyperactivity. And the doctor had just put my son on tranquilizers in 1961.
Whoa, that was a long time ago.
And the second thing I read was tranquilizers stunt the developing organs of children. And when I put those two and two together, I thought, oh my God, I'm listening to the wrong people. And Reg had said, you're listening to the wrong people. So I started reading, and I haven't stopped in 52 years.
Well, good for you. And of course, really, in retrospect, 1961, these ideas did not enjoy the mainstream status that they have today. So if you followed these ideas in 61, you were really a pioneer. It seems almost funny that the idea of not eating processed sugar, which many of us take for granted now as being an important idea, was so unknown up until actually reasonably recently.
I know. I was a member of the Kramer Club, and we played tennis there, and they had a machine in 1965 with all kinds of candy bars, and I kept saying, get that machine out of here, and the women scoffed, and the one that scoffed wound up with cancer.
Right.
So, I mean, I knew how deadly the sugar was and the white flour. And with my son, my first success was I got him off of the sugar, the white flour, the additives, the preservatives, and things like that. And the little boy that they said couldn't learn wound up graduating from high school as a physics major with honors. So I knew that was my first success. My second success was I followed a high-protein diet at first following Adele Davis. Mm-hmm. And I got in trouble on the high-protein diet. After 2 years, my son and I both had our tonsils out from eating all this high protein.
Because you felt that it was just too difficult to digest all the high protein?
The high protein is a stress on the human body. She's telling people to eat 125 grams of protein a day, and it's a tremendous stress, and I was fat, and I was lethargic, and I couldn't move. And if you look at the lion who gorges on protein, after he eats, he doesn't move.
Right.
So you don't get the energy from the protein, you get it from the carbohydrates.
Okay, that's so.
Uh-huh.
That's so. And of course, today, let's say, so you're a healthy woman, and about how much protein do you think that healthy adults, male or female, do need now? What's the amount?
I know. For me, my limit is 26 grams of protein a day. That's my max.
That's very low. That's a very low amount.
But that's for my body. And everybody is biochemically unique, so what's good for me might not be good for you.
Right.
I do eat a little bit of fish, and I do eat eggs, but I don't eat any other meat. And on the fish scale, I do eat the sardines because the sardines are low on the scale as far as getting mercury and other things in. They're little fish and they don't have as much mercury in them. And I'm aware that there is mercury and other toxic matter from the water.
Yes.
So, but I agree with you that we do need a little bit of excess protein other than fruit and vegetables. Now, I eat primarily fruit and vegetables. And I eat a lot. And yesterday I had like 5 pounds of fruit. And people will say to me, that's excessive amount. But I said, everybody's unique. And I had gotten off the grains when I was like 13. I realized that when I ate grains, I couldn't eat 2 pieces of bread without gaining weight. I just couldn't handle them. So I don't eat any grains at all. not for my body. So I didn't break down my pancreas, and most people in this country have broken down their pancreas from the amount of grains, and this has contributed to diabetes.
So you're saying now that you don't use any wheat, rye, oats, corn, and barley. Is that what you're saying?
No, nothing like that. Mm-mm.
And of course,
any processed food, because anything that it tells you, if you have to process a food, there was no processing plants back beyond, say, 4000 BC when the process of metal occurred. 4,000 years before Christ was born, that's when metal came into being, or 3,500 years actually. Pottery was like 4,000 years before. So there was nothing to process. We couldn't process our food. So it says that people were foragers. They ate off of bushes and trees, plants. So there was no way, and along comes these processed metals, and then we're able to do the cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, any food that you could pull off of a bush or tree and eat without processing, that's human food. I got into the study, and after 22 years of study, this is incredible, I realized that the information that we needed wasn't on this level. So I petitioned the Lord. I said, please guide me. And this is 1983. On December the 2nd, 1983, it came into my brain. Stop eating. And I wasn't prepared, and I had done fasting before, but I wasn't prepared. And the third day of that I'm on this, I'm very sick, 4 hours.
You're doing a water fast.
Water fast, I'm told, 3 glasses of water a day. That's it. And ask a blessing on the water. And I did realize that water, they make a hydrogen bomb from water. They crack the atoms and molecules in it, and the energy is tremendous. I had total energy. I didn't know it was going to last for 40 days. I did a 40-day fast on water.
You did a 40-day fast on water?
And I felt
that's
incredible.
Really?
And the end of the fast, I'm at the National Health Federation. I had a booth there for 3 days. I'm talking to hundreds of people. I'm lecturing there. And total energy just from the 3 glasses of water. But I didn't know how to break the fast. But anyway, I learned.
What did you break the fast on, by the way?
Well, the books say first you go raw fruit, and then you do raw vegetables, and after about 3 weeks, you go on to other food. Well, I made a mistake because I didn't know that if you don't get enough B12 in your system, you can't assimilate nutrients, and the food will go right through your body. So I break the fast. I'm 108 pounds. Next 3 weeks, I dropped 10 more pounds. I'm only eating the fruits and vegetables. I didn't know that you needed the B12 and the B vitamins in order to assimilate.
Well, that's one of the criticisms of the vegetarian diet, is that indeed it is lacking in B12 and probably lacking in carnitine and maybe lacking in choline. So those are some important criticisms of the vegetarian approach for a long-term basis.
Mm-hmm.
Are you you're eating some fish now?
I'm
and
eating
eggs,
some fish, and I'm eating some cage-free eggs, and I'm eating some pasture-grazed butter on the eggs, from cows that, graze. And the eggs that I'm eating, it says that they're cage-free and they're organic. And I am eating these things because I think that we need a little bit more than the fruits and the vegetables. I tried and wound up in the hospital.
Well, right. Let me just say this. So the things that you know about nutrition now in 2013, and even though you've been doing this since 1960, 61, you know a lot more now than anybody knew in 1960, 1961. So our ideas keep changing and growing as more science comes into play.
Absolutely. The other thing I didn't know was this. When I finished the fast, about a month or 2 later, I was guided to close my center on a paying basis and keep it open and do free consultations. So for 17 years, I did free consultations.
You had a center in Los Angeles?
In Pontius Avenue in West Los Angeles. And I was there, and then in 1994, I closed the center in Los Angeles, moved to my home and did free consultations for 17 years. 10 years after I did it, the book came. Now, what I learned from the free consultations was that many fruits and many vegetables that people are eating and they think they're good for them were designed for other species. And
really?
This has led to a major problem. For example, with the berries, they have little seeds in them.
Yes.
Blueberries are okay. Strawberries are okay. But the blackberries and the other berries were really designed for birds. And as they fly and their droppings hit the land, with the seeds and the droppings, it propagates the berry plants for them. And also the avocado. I loved avocado, but it made me sick. It has 19 grams of fat, and I can't handle that amount of fat.
Well, it's a lot of fat. So do you advocate like eating like a little fifth of an avocado or a quarter of an avocado, or just no avocado for you at all?
Well, I ask for guidance in everything I do, and at times I'm guided, I can handle it. But avocado was really primarily designed for hibernating animals that would want to store up the fat so that they can go through the winter.
Right.
And they were for hibernating animals. Not all fruit or vegetables. Dates, I could have called my book Dates Are for Camels. Because dates are for camels, right? They're the ship of the desert. It's their fuel from oasis to oasis. Right. The date sugar turns to fat, stored in the hump, and then that is the fuel of the ship of the desert.
I did not realize it. By the way, camels actually eat dates. I didn't really know that.
Oh, it's a food. They get them from oasis to oasis. Alrighty. So I'm picking up all this information as I'm going along by simply doing free consultations, learning from every person. And everybody is biochemically unique. And I did read Roger Williams' book, Biochemical Individuality.
Oh, yes. That was a popular book.
Very interesting because it opens your eyes to everybody. Nobody can tell you what's good for you. I can't tell anybody what's good for them. People sometimes say it's my information. I said, no, I'm asking for guidance. And I did 17 years free before I was told, okay, now you can accept the donation. And then after another 13 years, I kind of gave up, and I'm just busy learning. Every single day, I am experimenting. I'm learning. I'm tabulating. I'm keeping records like you wouldn't believe on food, and on the amount of food, on the calories, the carbs, the fat, the protein, the fiber, the amount of water that's in the food. And yesterday, in 5 pounds of fruit, there is 64 ounces of water.
Right. So I don't need that. If you're eating a lot of fresh fruit, you don't really need to drink that much water.
You don't need to drink. Right. I still drink a little bit of water, and I am not 100% perfect. I am eating, which I just love, and I tell people about this. This is super incredible. Vanilla unsweetened almond milk. Have you ever used it?
What brand do you like?
I am using 365. It's organic.
Oh, yes.
And it doesn't have any carrageenan in.
All right.
And I did a blog on carrageenan, how dangerous it was.
Carrageenan being used as a thickener of foods.
Yeah, it's a thickener in many foods. And it's an irritant to the bowel, but it does to the intestinal tract. It's irritating. I've got so many people who got back to me and told me that they stopped it and they felt better. But anyway, with the blogs that I'm doing now, I've done 119 on different subjects, and I'm giving people information on, I think we're here to serve. This is the way I look.
That's a nice way to look at it. I agree with you, actually.
I think we're here to serve. I help you, you help somebody else, and we change the world one by one.
I think so, too. May I ask, you have 4 children?
I got 4 kids, yes.
And your children, of course, obviously fully grown and probably have children of their own.
I only have 1 grandchild.
Only 1, okay. Would you say that, did the 4 children, did a couple of them actually listen to you on the food thing, or none of them, or one of them? Or?
No, the girls, I got 2 girls and 2 boys. And my one oldest daughter follows a great deal what I'm saying, and she is being very, very careful. My other daughter is a film producer, and she's all over the world, and she's traveling.
So that gives her an excuse not to eat carefully. Is that what you're saying?
It's very difficult for her to eat right. And the older son tries, but he's very addicted to
Sugar?
the wrong food. He doesn't. That's the boy that had the poor head start. And his life has been very difficult because of the poor head start. They started him out on evaporated milk and corn syrup for his first 3 months.
Okay, well, in retrospect, obviously that was not a great idea. I don't think anyone would argue with us today in 2013 that was a good idea. But I'm sure that in the early 1950s, when your son was very young, most authorities would say, okay, that's perfectly legitimate, it's perfectly fine. And now people would say, okay, that was just a bad idea. That was bad science at the time. Right.
He was very sickly, and I had no idea until I started reading. When Reg gave me the books, I had no idea that the diet had hurt him so badly.
Right.
And I had 4 labors with 4 children. The first 3 were 26-hour long. When I became a vegetarian, I was a total vegetarian. An hour and a half, I could have had the baby at home.
Okay, well, that's a great first-person experience. And also, again, so your brother-in-law was Reg Lewis. He was what, a Mr. Universe and Mr. America?
Yes,
Right.
and many other titles.
And again, he also was, as a very young man, worked for Mae West in her nightclub review as one of the young bodybuilders.
Right.
Right.
Right. So he was very influential, and I've told Reg over again many times that if I hadn't changed my diet, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I've learned a great deal, but in my book I do have tables on the fruits and the vegetables and which ones are for human consumption, which ones are not for human consumption. And there, I lectured at a convention on the myth of the balanced diet many, many years ago. One of my chapters, Myth of the Balanced Diet. Another one is disease creators and diseases that are created by eating the wrong foods. Most problems are created because you're eating foods that are not biochemically right for your body.
I agree. Now, on the idea of food, if you could give my listeners your 1 or 2 of your most important ideas, if people want to start out and they don't know where to start out, what was the first thing you tell them to do?
Eat as much fruit and vegetables as possible.
Okay, eat fresh fruits and vegetables.
Fresh fruits and vegetables as possible. I told one lady that at a party. Then I called her 30 days later, and she'd been lying on her couch for 5 years. At the end of 30 days, she was mowing her lawn. She said she never felt so good.
Okay, you did a nice thing then. And what about, I always like to ask my guests this question, what about the use of processed sugar?
I wouldn't touch it. I do use stevia. And I use cal stevia.
Okay, so you like the cal stevia, cal being a brand name,
Yes.
and stevia being a plant-based sweetener. So would you say that, in your opinion, the use of processed sugar sodas, etc., sugar is just a real bad idea?
That couldn't be worse. I mean, sugar has nothing in it, but it robs the body just being handled. It has no nutritional value whatsoever, and it can cause hyperactivity. I saw that in my son.
Right.
I took him off the sugar and the white flour and stuff like that, and he completely changed.
Right. And you're the mom, and you notice that, so that's a first-person experience. You're allowed to say that.
Yeah, I wrote a manual, How to Raise an Organic Baby. It was 300 pages, and I took it to New York, and they couldn't publish it because I didn't have a doctorate.
Okay.
So then I went to Columbia Pacific trying to get a doctorate, and I paid for a doctorate and a master's, and they awarded me a master's on the strength of the 300-page thesis that I had done.
Okay.
And it was very, very valid. It was validated. The people that read it were a nurse and a doctor. And they said it was very, very good information, but it was information telling women how to have easier labors and how to avoid problems with, with their children by eating the fruits and the vegetables. I was totally vegetarian at the time. Now I'm not totally vegetarian.
Right.
You know.
Are you embarrassed by the fact that you're not vegetarian?
Some people I have a friend of mine that got angry at me when he found out that I wasn't a vegetarian.
He felt that
and
you
he
had
didn't want to talk to me
Oh,
anymore.
really? Deserted the fold, so to speak?
Yes, yes. He got very upset, and I said, well, you know something? Wind up in the hospital a few times, and from trying to be a vegetarian, you learn that it doesn't work for everybody.
Right, for sure. Yeah, actually, I'm not vegetarian. I was for a long time. But I really feel that if I knew now what I didn't know in, say, 1970, I really never would have been vegetarian. But at the time, the information seemed so good, because after all, in those days, in the 60s and 70s, you were vegetarian, you were eating organically grown fruits and vegetables, you were avoiding pesticides, you were using no processed sugar, no processed flour, all the other ideas that went with the idea of being vegetarian. It wasn't just that you were vegetarian, it was everything that went with it at the time. And so in retrospect, I say, well, I know a lot more now than I did then, and so do all the other teachers know a lot more now. And I just became less doctrinaire. I was a doctrinaire vegetarian, and then I just one day decided, okay, that's it. I've been thinking for 10 years to quit, and I just stopped, and I was vaguely embarrassed that I stopped. For a couple of weeks, I was vaguely embarrassed that I stopped being vegetarian, and I thought that's interesting. I hadn't expected that would happen to me, but I thought, oh yes, I felt slightly embarrassed, and then I thought, well, okay, I feel better now, and so that was in retrospect. In retrospect, I wouldn't do it again.
Well, there are many days a week, maybe 4 days a week, I don't eat any fish. And you don't need it every single day of the week.
Right.
But I go with the flow, so to speak. If the weather is very hot like it is now, then I'm primarily a lot of fruit. I love that because fruit is the greatest blood thinner in the world. And it thins your blood. And if your blood is thinned, I have no air conditioning and no heat in my house. I am doing great.
Because you don't really need it, in your opinion.
You don't need it if you do your own natural air conditioning by eating right.
People might find that somewhat radical. I know that some of the listeners are finding it very radical, but I completely agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it saves money and it saves the environment if you don't have to use the air conditioning. And I'm very careful about, I do have a filter on my shower, but I'm guided not to shower every day. Okay. And sometimes I might go a week without a shower, but I sponge bathe and I wash.
Why, because you're afraid that as you get older, the skin becomes drier?
No, because we have a problem in the world today with scarcity of water.
True. And
we're in a desert. Los Angeles is a desert, and people are not aware that we're living in a desert. And I am afraid...
Are you making a cultural reference here, or are you just a physical reference?
Well, it's a physical reference. We are a desert, and we're using an awful lot of water. And there's a limit. And if we have a major drought, we're going to have tremendous water shortages.
So then really, your ideas, which I, by the way, agree with, so your idea, you're still pretty radical. These ideas are still reasonably radical.
Oh, definitely. But I'm asking for guidance. I say, should I do this or shouldn't I do that? And it's coming to me. And I use a pendulum when I go in the market and I'm putting food out. It's dowsing. And people don't understand that there are people that get paid thousands of dollars for dowsing for oil or dowsing for water or dowsing for mineral deposits. And they get all kinds of money for doing this. I douse for food. And then
that works for you. You feel that is a good guide for you.
Well, people don't understand how it works. The pineal gland is our transmitter receiver. In here, what the Eastern people refer to as the third eye is our transmitter receiver with universal energy and the universal mind and the ideas that come in. And then they go down through your hands, and then when you use the pendulum, you put your brain into neutral. I put my brain into neutral. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm asking for guidance. And then I'm being given the foods. I used to do 250 foods on a cytotoxic test to give people their perfect foods. Sure. Now I am not doing that. I wouldn't do that anymore because I've eliminated dairy. No dairy whatsoever, and no grains.
And you feel better without dairy and without grains.
Too much protein. It's just excessive amount. If you knew how much protein you need, if you knew how much fat your liver could break down. I suffered from migraine headaches for 30 years until I learned that my liver could only emulsify so much fat.
Right, which is from direct personal experience. So you're saying that, in your opinion, for you,
Hmm.
headaches, which you had for a long time, were moderated or avoided through the avoidance of certain foods. Is that it?
Absolutely. I haven't had a migraine headache in 20 years because I don't eat nuts and seeds, too much fat. I don't eat salad dressings or salad oil. I make blender drinks with my greens, and I love greens. You asked me the other food. The greens are very important.
Green vegetables juiced.
Yeah,
Okay.
spinach and kale and mustard greens and tomatoes. I put them into a blender, and then I put a little bit of lemon juice in there. Not lemon juice, lime juice for me. I love lime. And I put a little bit of garlic powder. And I don't use raw garlic because raw garlic is really bad for your body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you ever try to hold a clove of garlic in your mouth, it burns your mouth. Well, this is what happens as the garlic is moving through your intestinal tract. It is destroying the unhealthy bacteria, but it's also destroying the healthy bacteria, which formulate the B vitamins and give you a brain and your memory.
All right.
And a lot of vegetarians, when they get older, that are eating a lot of the raw garlic, don't have a good memory.
Uh-huh.
I know one that I knew for 40 years, Gypsy Boots.
Oh, Gypsy Boots. Oh, my goodness, Gypsy Boots. Yes,
Yeah, I knew him for 40 years. And he'd
Gypsy
look at me
Boots.
and say, "Do I know you? Do I know you?"
Well, how old was Gypsy at the end?
He was 89. He said he was 92, but he was actually 89. I knew him. I was at his birthday parties every year.
And Gypsy, he only made it to 89, which actually, I'm not making a joke here, but
Yeah.
89, you think that a guy like Gypsy could live way longer than that. You think his diet was just wasn't enough.
He was on a lot of dates, which is high amount of sugar.
Too much sugar. Yeah.
Too much sugar.
Even funny, because even dates, of course, dates are dried fruit, so there's a problem with mold and mildew. And I find as I get older that if you eat just too much sugar, even fruit, you just don't feel that good. It just doesn't seem to. It's fun, but you don't do that good on it.
Right. My mother on junk food, 89. Her sister, 92 on a standard American diet. Her husband went to 99.5 standard American diet. No exercise either.
I know. People can live for a very long time. Barbara Charis, it's been fun having you on the show today. I very much appreciate you being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. My guest, Barbara Charis. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. Walk, run, climb, play. Solgar number 7 can help. Feel the difference for yourself. Solgar number 7 actually shows improvement in joint comfort within 7 days. Now you can start to get back on track fast and pursue the activities you love. Solgar number 7 is a breakthrough in joint care with no glucosamine and no chondroitin. The advanced bioactives in Solgar number 7 help to increase flexibility, mobility, range of motion, and actually shows improvement within just 7 days. One capsule, once a day, is all you need. When stiff joints occasionally say no, Solgar number 7 says yes. Visit Solgar.com and learn more about Solgar number 7 today. That's www.solgar.com, www.solgar.com. Solgar number 7, official sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live.
Okra Group Personal Chefs, proud sponsors of Let's Do Lunch with Chef Richard Petty. Okra Group Personal Chefs have been providing quality gourmet culinary services to distinctive homes since 2004. For a free evaluation of dietary needs, call 818-850-9584. That's 818-850-9584. We will design a custom menu that fits your needs. So call us today, Okra Group Personal Chefs. Let us personally make you a dish.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My next guest is Dr. Robert Nagori, an MD, who has written an excellent book on cancer, and the title of the book, Outliving Cancer. Dr. Nagori has been a guest on Here's to Your Health before, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Robert Nagori to Here's to Your Health. Thank you, Dr. Nagori.
Well, thank you for having me, Joshua.
I'm happy to have you on. And just by way of introduction, where do you get your undergraduate and graduate degrees?
I did a degree in chemistry at Boston University, and then I went on to do medicine at McGill University in Montreal.
And then did you work at the National Institute of Health after that as a researcher?
I did 2 fellowships, one fellowship in solid tumor oncology at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and a second separate fellowship in hematology and hematologic malignancies at the Scripps Institute in La Jolla.
So you have an excellent science background, and your book is a progressive book. If I can start you out with this, what is the criticism that you might offer that some MDs are using for cancer patients? And then the second part of the question is, what's the newer protocol that you feel is better science?
Well, the book was written as somewhat of a narrative. It's really the view of cancer from the standpoint of patients, each patient representing an interesting scientific principle. I wrote the book because we have developed a technique to measure drug response and newer classes of drugs and combinations for each individual patient. And we would like to develop the paradigm of personalized medicine for cancer.
That seems very fair. And at this point, is that scientifically validated? No, is there enough science that you and colleagues have that it's going that way?
Well, every patient today who's diagnosed with cancer, the first thing you do is diagnose them. You establish that they have a malignancy. That's done with a pathologist. They review the material and they say you have lung or colon or breast. At that point, it becomes a little iffy. You will get whatever the standard protocol that's being used for that particular disease. Mm-hmm. The problem is about 2/3 of cancer patients with colon or lung, and even a substantial portion of patients with breast cancer, do not respond to the standard therapies. And when that occurs, the patient suffers all the toxicities and hazards of the treatment, but doesn't get the benefit. Now, chemotherapy is no picnic. I mean, patients lose hair, the blood counts are lowered, they're at risk for infection and bleeding, they feel poorly, and if at the end of the day they're not better, then you've really added insult to injury. And we feel that that's not a very good way to approach each patient.
Did you actually just say that 2/3 of the patients might not respond to chemotherapy?
Yes, I did say that. The current response rate, for example, the most common leading cause of death in America is lung cancer. And only about 31% of patients with advanced lung cancer today respond to available therapies. So that means the majority of patients suffering the slings and arrows of ignoble chemotherapy are going through the toxicity and hardship without the benefit. It's really a bad payoff.
It seems like a terribly bad payoff.
Yes, I would agree. And so we realized some years ago that there would have to be a better way to approach this. Now, instead of using the standardized protocols, which have been slowly developed over many years of trial and error, we felt that each patient's tissue, their own cancer, could give us insight into therapy. The problem is that this was such an obvious and important thing that people had tried it. And they had tried it over and over again without success.
They had tried it.
Oh, absolutely.
In the United States.
All over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem was that there was a fundamental error in our reasoning. For many years, I'd say over 100 years, we have believed that cancer is a disease of cell growth. Cancers were thought to be dividing rapidly. The process of abnormality was driven by proliferation. And the drugs and treatments and interventions were designed to stop growth, stop cells from dividing, as it were. If you ask most patients or people, what do they think cancer does wrong? It divides too quickly. It has too much cell division. So not surprisingly, we developed a lot of drugs and treatments that stop cell division. In 1972, a very important paper was published in the British Journal of Cancer, and it described the phenomenon of programmed cell death. And what these investigators said was, interestingly, cancer may not be driven by rapid growth and division, but actually may just outlive its neighbors. And if it lives long enough, it has an extra child or two, more than the average cell. So over a period of days, weeks, years, months, decades, you accumulate malignancies. You don't grow them. Indeed, it turns out, according to some work out of Johns Hopkins, the average patient diagnosed with colon cancer in America today has had that tumor in the colon for 27 years.
That's an official number from who again?
That is work out of Johns Hopkins.
Wow.
And that would suggest that a single cell, an errant cell, gives rise to a second errant cell. Mm-hmm. And year after year, they slowly accumulate until you can find them as a 1 centimeter polyp at a colonoscopy at age 27. It has often been recognized that the average lung cancer patient has had their tumor in their lung for at least 10 years.
Wow.
And so the first time you can see these things at colonoscopy, at chest x-ray, at CAT scan, is at about 1 centimeter in dimension. That's 1 billion cells, every one of which got there slowly through accumulation. Now, recognizing that, we became very interested in the idea that maybe we could turn this process upside down and stop measuring growth and stop using drugs to prevent proliferation, but instead use drugs to kill cells outright. And that phenomenon, programmed cell death, also one form of which is known as apoptosis, is a very fundamental process of life. Every human process must eliminate cells it doesn't need. If you get sunburned, you peel your skin. When you're in utero as a child, you have to dissolve the tissue between the fingers so you have digits. So we use death effectively to eliminate cells we don't want. The problem with cancer is that the cancer cell learns how to avoid the normal process of death and stays alive longer than its counterparts and accumulates into a tumor. So with that new understanding since 1972, I began to realize that any laboratory test would have to in fact study cell death. And that was a big break from everyone else's work. The first published paper in this field was in 1954. However, it wasn't until the mid-70s or early 80s that anyone realized that cell death was fundamental. So all of those decades of work had been done in the wrong field. Once we made that transition, we began to test in the 80s and 90s. We began to test this approach, and it worked very well. Our first test was in leukemias and cells that were particularly programmed for death. And then we slowly migrated into another discovery, and that was that cancer is not a cell, but an environment, a microenvironment of abnormal cells and abnormal stroma and abnormal immune cells. In point of fact, the normal cancer cell hijacks your blood vessels, your immune system and your stromal elements, your lattice work of tissue, so that it can become a microenvironmental abnormality known as a tumor.
I see.
Tumors are not cells, they're microenvironments, they're ecologies. So the two fundamental directions that we moved away from everyone else was to study cell death instead of growth, and to study it in the native state, in the tissue directly out of the patient, looking just like it would if it was still in your body. And that's fundamentally what we've done different.
And as far as this, it's not pronounced apoptosis. How do you pronounce it?
Apoptosis.
Apoptosis. So do they also use shark cartilage for apoptosis? And are the physicians also using the drug thalidomide? Do those ideas run parallel with yours?
Well, the process of cell death can be induced with any injury or any withdrawal of a growth factor. After all, if you think about it, what do many of the treatments for breast cancer do? Well, they eliminate estrogen. Estrogen is a substance that maintains cells in a living state. Mm-hmm. If you withdraw estrogen, the cells don't get that stimulus and they will involute and die. So many therapies, thalidomide, perhaps shark cartilage, natural products, induce injuries that can be read as lethal. If you withdraw survival signals or injure in a way that the cell realizes cannot be repaired, then those injuries are therapeutically effective, whatever they are.
So if a patient came to you and said, I have been sick, I'm sick with cancer, and I'm thinking of using thalidomide, would you think that could be a plus for some patients if you do genetic testing on them? Is that what you do?
We do not run genomic analyses. We do something called functional or cytometric analysis. We look at cells in their microenvironment to study them. But thalidomide is a widely used therapy. Thalidomide was developed originally as a sedative. It turned out to have a very unappealing side effect.
Yes.
It was largely disappeared from the literature until about 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, when it was realized that it influenced certain growth factors in human lymphocytes. Mm-hmm. And thalidomide was reintroduced because of its anti-angiogenic and immune modulatory effects. And thalidomide today is the basis of extremely important therapies for multiple myeloma and related lymphoid diseases. So thalidomide is an absolutely legitimate therapy.
And you, as a researcher, feel that you ever go to conferences and colleagues have read your book and say, Robert, we don't agree with your stuff?
Well, actually, I think that the fundamental understanding of human biology and the understanding of programmed cell death has become common knowledge.
It has, okay.
What has not occurred is that people realize you can do this in the tissue culture environment to come up with clinically useful information. Medicine and medical science is incremental. So first you have to explain to people that you can leaven bread, then you have to explain to them that you can slice it and serve it.
Okay, that seems fair.
And so we're kind of at the point where they figured out that you can actually make this stuff. We're still showing them you can slice it up and use it.
And you've been at this now 20 years or more than 20?
Yeah, I've been working in this field for about 20 plus years.
Are you in Los Angeles territory? You live in Los Angeles?
We have a laboratory in Long Beach, and I also teach at UC Irvine.
Do you want to mention how we can contact you?
Sure. Yeah. We're at Rational Therapeutics, which can be found www.rationaltherapeutics.com. You can Google my name, Robert Nagorny. We are published in the book Outliving Cancer, which is Basic Health Press. And we're regular participants in scientific meetings. We publish extensively. We've published a very interesting paper on lung cancer in this past year with a very good doubling of responses. So
Where was that published?
That was published in Anti-Cancer Research, a European journal.
Now, you mentioned that many of the regimes for cancer patients really have a low percentage of success. Now, do patients with cancer come to you, or are you simply a researcher? Do you work with patients?
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm a clinical oncologist and hematologist. I'm board certified in internal medicine, oncology, and hematology. I do practice oncology, but I'd say a substantial number of my patients come for just a single opinion. Our job, I like to consider myself an architect. I'm sort of the Frank Lloyd Wright of oncology.
Great.
So I can design for any individual patient exactly what they need. They can often take those blueprints back to their doctors in Skokie or Chicago or New York City or New Jersey and have their doctors follow the recipe. Because many of the drugs that we use are the standard available drugs. We just piece them together in the best possible way for each patient.
And can I ask, what kind of success rate do you have? And what have you done really good with? For example, have you just discovered that you have a much better chance of healing breast cancer than other physicians Is that putting you on the spot too much?
No. Our earliest work was in leukemia. We did some early work that discovered a treatment for a disease called hairy cell leukemia. We went on to develop combinations that are used around the world today for lymphoid malignancies like chronic lymphocytic leukemia and low-grade lymphoma. We then got interested in solid tumors as we made these transitions into the
solid tumors, meaning like
well,
in the
breast
bowel?
and colon and lung. The fluid tumors are leukemias and lymphomas and myelomas. Those are blood-borne tumors, and they constitute 10 or 15% of all cancers. The majority of cancers are lung and colon and breast and ovary, and those are the tough ones. So we've developed these techniques to learn how to manage the tougher diseases. Now, using that approach, we've on average doubled the outcome and response in every one of those diseases. We reported at the American Society of Clinical Oncology this past spring in Chicago a 2.04-fold, that's better than twofold improvement in outcomes in over 2,500 patients analyzed. So we've shown consistently and statistically significantly that you can double responses and add between 1.5 and twofold improvement in survival by simply matching patients better to available drugs.
Well, that seems terribly important. Has that been well received?
It has been increasingly well received. Remember that we are disrupting existing approaches. Many people want to stay with the standard protocol. It's much easier. If you don't have to think through each patient's individual problem, you can go to the textbook and everyone with breast gets one thing, and everyone with colon gets another thing, and everyone with leukemia gets another thing. And what we feel is, no, every patient needs what is best for them, and sometimes you have to do the extra work and think through a regimen you haven't used before or consider combinations that you don't know. And that's a little daunting to some oncologists.
It doesn't seem like it should be daunting at all. I'm not trying to be flip. Obviously, it's a terribly important subject, and your research seems so good. You know, all they've got to do is slightly more work at first to realize this is a better protocol, and you'd think that they would just kind of be happy to double their rate of success with their patients.
You would think so, and we would certainly hope so. But unfortunately, we don't seem in America to reward excellence anymore. We just punish failure. And many oncologists are risk averse because they don't want to step out of the confines of the norms. And I don't blame them for that because, in fact, they don't really get a pat on the back for doing the right thing, but they certainly will be punished for doing the wrong thing.
True.
So they're very afraid to step away from the norms. We also will avoid doing things where there's a very clearly curative therapy. We will often not involve ourselves. The times that we become involved is where no one really knows what to do, or it's a disease for which there isn't a good treatment, or it's a disease where the toxicities are so extreme some patients will walk away from therapy. And so we try to say, no, don't fail to try this. It's got a good chance of helping you, and it should be tolerable based on the schedule.
But in general, you act as kind of the head teacher, and the patient comes to you, and then you refer them out to other physicians who actually administer the protocol that you feel is the most desirable.
Right. What we feel the best way for this is for patients to stay close to home. We're very happy. I just met a patient yesterday from Prescott, Arizona. People come from all over the world, actually. We have patients from Saudi Arabia. But the issue is that what we want to do is to figure out their problem. What they really need is a good opinion that defines their need. Most good medical oncologists can deliver the treatment if they know what to give. The genius in all of this, if any, is picking the drugs, not giving them.
Picking the drugs. Okay, so here's a very broad question, and I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but could you emphasize a few of the medications that you feel these are newer and these are better, these are less toxic, these give me a better, for what I've got to put the patient through, the patients just do better? Can you answer that? Is that fair?
Well, there are a couple of principles by which we work. First of all, more isn't always better. So we feel that patients should get the right drugs, not a lot of the wrong drugs. Secondly, newer drugs aren't always better than older drugs. So there's a lot of rush to the brand new hot ticket items. But for the most part, drugs that work sometimes are from old armamentarium. They can be standard treatments that just haven't been very well considered used. We like to think that the best treatment for each patient is the one that induces the most death in the test tube, whether it's a new drug or an old drug, or whether it's a new combination. Now, one of the problems we do encounter is that newer drugs are often only approved for very narrow indications. Mm-hmm. For example, we have a patient we just saw yesterday who came back to pick up a copy of our book. He's on a treatment for a bile cancer, a biliary system that's like a gallbladder cancer, which is a perfect treatment for him and is working very nicely, but it's only approved for the pancreas cancer, which is about 1 millimeter removed anatomically but from FDA approval is a million miles apart.
I see.
So we're having difficulty giving him the right treatment, even though it's working. And that's a very disappointing
Because,
experience.
unfortunately, the legal system would say, you didn't follow accepted protocol, and they could come after you and cause a lot of distress.
No, it's not that you would be at risk for litigation. It's more that you just can't get compensated. The patient can't purchase the drug. The insurance companies are very rigidly defining what they'll pay for. So we have patients receiving quote-unquote off-label indications. But, I mean, if a drug works, I often say that drugs don't know what diseases they were invented for. And unfortunately...
That seems fair too, doesn't it? Yeah.
And so we find that patients are very often receiving treatments that are standard, not working, yet they can't get slightly off the beaten path treatments that would work because of the narrow indications in the FDA approvals.
Well, that seems wrong. Let me ask you a broad question. Are you hopeful that in the next 5 or 10 years things will be way better for cancer patients?
I think we have two countervailing forces taking place. Number one is the growing scientific desire for personalized medicine. If you distill down what everyone talks about on the front cover of Time magazine with all this genomic breakthroughs, what they're really talking about is making treatments individualized. Each patient gets their own treatment. So that's personalized medicine, and that's a very appealing direction. On the flip side of the coin, with greater governmental regulation, we find that there's an increasing need to adhere to guidelines. So we're becoming increasingly rigid in defining what people can get. Now, if you think about it, if you define these rigid guidelines, that's the exact opposite of personalized medicine. So if you ask me where we'll be, it depends on which side wins. If the personalized medicine approach wins, then we're going to have a really brilliant future for cancer medicine. If the standardized, rigid protocol, hidebound approach wins, then everybody's going to get exactly what everybody else gets, and I'm not so sure it's going to be a good outcome.
You're right. And of course, it's also impossible, I think, to predict the future unless, of course, you're a seer, and I'm not a seer, and I'm not sure. You might be a seer, I do not know. But sometimes things happen just very quickly, like who predicted the fall of the Soviet Union? Nobody did. No one in government, none of the university guys, no one predicted the fall of the Soviet Union. So is it possible that the information reaches a critical mass and all of a sudden will just move in a different direction?
Well, I certainly hope that our approach will be applied more broadly. We clearly believe that individualized therapy is cost-effective, is less toxic, can avoid futile care. I mean, if you ask me what do we do in my laboratory, what is my work? Well, our intent is to cure the curable patient, make sure that someone who could be cured is cured. The second one is to treat the treatable patient so that people who have an option of getting better don't avoid that because it's the toxicity or it's their third line or some other arbitrary reason not to be treated.
What's the third line mean?
Oh, first treatment didn't work, second treatment didn't work, third treatment. Sometimes the patients, they just say don't try it. And then finally, we believe that one of our roles is to avoid futile care. Patients who are ill, who are not responding, sometimes we do a test and we say, you know, treatments don't work. I have a patient on my way up here today I was conferring about who I believe I just can't help at this point. She's many years out with ovarian cancer and it's not working anymore. And we tested her and she's not sensitive. So we have to say to her, perhaps further chemotherapy is not in your best interest. So it's a cure the curables, treat the treatables, and avoid futile care.
And to avoid futile care, also, since the treatment, some of the treatments are very toxic, she would avoid toxicity, which would be unnecessary and would not, in your opinion, help her. So it would benefit her just not to do that.
Yes, many patients live longer and better without treatment than with it.
And when you say that, do you hesitate to say that? Is that considered very radical?
No. I think that medical oncologists should remember that they are medical doctors trained in cancer medicine. They're not chemotherapists. They should remember their job is to provide the best possible care and outcome for each patient. That's the role of the doctor.
Yes.
Now, they have in their quiver the chemotherapy arrows, and maybe those arrows should be shot at some patients, but not everybody. You don't shoot in the dark, you don't put a blindfold on, and you shouldn't just poison people indiscriminately. So, yeah, I think we have to be judicious in our use of therapies.
And would you say that you know stuff about stuff is a foolish word. Would you have information that you would say things you know now in 2013 that you might not have known as a researcher, say, in 1980 or 1990 about lifestyle, which you take more seriously now, whereas at one time you might have thought, oh, that's just of no consequence?
Well, one of the chapters in my book, the book itself is, as I said, sort of experiences of individual patients. And one of the patients was a very sophisticated PhD who developed a lymphoma, and I was convinced he needed chemotherapy, and he was convinced he didn't, and he decided to go on to a very aggressive macrobiotic-based diet after reading Michio Kushi and going through all of his writings, and he developed a dietary regimen that kept his lymphoma in control for many years. In fact, it was such a striking experience that Dr. Weil, in his book Spontaneous Healing,
Andrew Weil?
Andrew Weil described the same patient as an example of a naturally managed patient. Now, when he did years later relapse, we finally rebiopsied, came up with a relatively simple combination, and he's alive. Gosh, must be almost 20 years after he did undergo some chemotherapy. But I was very impressed, in fact, absolutely overwhelmed by the fact that he could largely control his lymphoma without exposure to any chemotherapies. And it was a big insight and epiphany for me to realize that these natural therapies were not idle points, but very legitimate and real interventions. And I really did, some 20, 25 years ago, reorient my very Western training in medicine to incorporate a lot of naturopathic and natural product approaches, which we continue to study to this day.
Well, that's a very nice story. That's a very good story. So your experience now is that some of these ideas that used to be called alternative years ago, and now what I just called biological medicine, the whole idea of like, watch what you eat, it affects your health. Don't we all take that for granted as being like, it's a good idea not to be drinking soda, and maybe you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes. But if this was, say, 1960, and I said to you, cigarette smoking is bad for you, you might have said, well, no, we're not really sure, right? I mean, you might have said that as a scientifically oriented fellow, you might have said, well, no, we're not really sure that's really so, and, that might just be conjecture. But now, no one would fight with you. But in 1960, maybe a lot of your colleagues would have said, oh, no, Robert, you're out on a limb with that one.
I think that we are going through a very important transition in our understanding of cancer biology. Part of the theme of this book is that cancer may not be an abnormality of informatics and genomics and genetics and DNA. It may in fact be a disease of metabolism. And if that is the case, as we are coming to realize more and more, and the really sophisticated scientists today, I think, are beginning to look askance at simple genomics and are moving through transcriptomics and proteomics to metabolomics. And where the really sophisticated scientific investigations are back where we were in the 40s and 30s. I gave a TED lecture a couple of years ago. And it was called The Future of Cancer Research Lies Behind Us. And it's actually, people can look it up online. And I talked about the fact that we are coming back to realize that biochemistry, not genomics, drives biology. Now, if that's the case...
that's a very strong statement, isn't it?
Oh, it's a very true statement.
Yes.
And so if we come to realize that all of life is not information but bioenergetics, and that our raison d'etre is really to drive cellular existence through metabolism, then cancer is a perturbed metabolism, an altered metabolism. And if that's the case, then many of the things that people talk about regarding natural foods or diet or lifestyle or activities or even sleep patterns are reflections of your metabolic well-being. And that is... this is not idle speculation. This is very fundamental, ongoing basic research at Harvard and Sloan Kettering and UCLA. This is the new direction of cancer research.
Well, that's fantastic information. Dr. Nagore, how can we get in contact with you? How can we buy your book?
The book is on Amazon, and it's Basic Health, Outliving Cancer, the Better, Smarter Way to Treat Your Cancer. It is, you can reach me directly, Robert Nagorny, or you can find us through www.rationaltherapeutics.com. We have a website. We do regular blogs. We contribute to the scientific literature. We've published extensively. People can look up our paper on lung cancer from October of 2012 with a twofold improvement in survival. So we're certainly out there.
Well, thank you for being a guest on Here's Health. It's been a great pleasure having you on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey, shout us out. What's the count? I'm your host, Ferran Dozier. I'm inviting you to join me on WDC Radio every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time as we discuss community topics around health, sports, and entertainment. So don't forget to shout us out. What's the count? On WDC Radio, only on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. What's the count?
Hi, this is Jean Noel Bassior, inviting you to join me for my new show, The Book Beat, Monday evenings, 6:30 p.m. I'll be talking to authors about their latest book so you can find a fantastic read. But more than that, I'll be talking to experts about how you can write your own book and get it published. So tune in on Mondays at 6:30 p.m. exclusively on latalklive.com. And remember, you can catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
This is Brett Chapin.
And this is Dorothy Dillingham Blue, inviting you to join us every Saturday at noon Pacific Standard Time for our show, La La Land Talk.
Join us as we talk with some of the top talent in LA. Artists' untold stories, your phone calls, and live on-location broadcasts have made La La Land one of the best sources in LA for everything entertainment.
So don't forget to tune in to La La Land Talk.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com.
Saturdays at noon Pacific Time. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/LaLaLandTalk, Twitter, twitter.com/LaLaLandTalk. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live.
And we are more than just talk. I think we've got a Shakespeare monologue or two we could do. Yeah.
Jazz hands.
Kickball change.
Good
That's
stuff.
what I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
I'll do some Pippin.
Ooh, yeah. Some miming. I'm in a box.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. My guest is Catherine Perez, who has Light of Beauty products, healthy, clean soaps, and things for their skin. Catherine, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
So you are, would you say, are you a soap maker? Is that
I am.
characterized that way?
Yeah, I am a soap maker. I love making. I've always wanted to make, my own products, and, I took it seriously, back when my mom got diagnosed with skin cancer and breast cancer in the same year.
Oh.
So I thought I started kind of take a step back, and I started looking at, reading labels, and, what I was reading was pretty horrifying. I mean, there was stuff on that I was putting on that I couldn't even pronounce the ingredients. So that's kind of what got me into what I'm doing now.
Right, and putting chemicals on the skin that are not good for us, it's possible that over the short or long term, that
Right.
those chemicals, since we absorb them through the skin, it's not a good idea.
It's absolutely not a good idea. So I started with my family, and then I decided to do it for the holidays one year and kind of experiment and give my family that as a gift. And I gave them soaps, I gave them body scrubs, and everybody loved it. So it kind of snowballed from there. And I just kind of, started formulating my own, soaps. And, I have facial cleansers now and body butters. So it kind of evolved.
And, for example, let's just start with soap. What is in your soap and what is not in your soap that makes me want to buy your soap?
Well, they have no soy. They have no animal products. They're vegan for the most part, except for ones that contain honey or some that have yogurt. I make all of them with raw African shea butter or organic cocoa butter. I try to use as much as I can as far as organic ingredients. I try to get everything local. My honey comes from a farm in Fillmore. I have my lavender comes from a small farm in Camarillo. So I mean, all
That is local?
That is local. So I do everything myself. I make every bar myself, and I make them in small batches, which really helps with controlling the quality of the product.
And you did mention shea butter. Now that shea butter seems pretty popular now. What is shea butter?
Well, I use raw African shea butter, which is in its raw form. It comes from the karita tree, the shea karita tree that's only found in Africa. So it's in its raw form, so it hasn't been heated, it hasn't been refined, and there has nothing been added to it. So it's amazing for the skin. It contains naturally, it contains vitamins A and E. So it's used also as like a natural sunblock. I mean, it's really an amazing moisturizer. You can use it everywhere.
That's called shea butter.
Yeah, and I use the raw African shea butter, not the refined shea butter.
And shea butter just makes my skin moist, keeps my skin moist?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. It's moisturizing. It's great for chapped skin, your lips. People use it in their hair if they have like really dry hair.
Oh, really?
You can use it pretty much anywhere. When my son was a newborn, I would actually just the raw butter. I would put it instead of diaper rash, and it was amazing.
Ah.
So
that's always nice to hear.
Yeah, it is. If it's good enough for him, it's good enough for everybody else. So
Right.
So it's good.
Is the product? Which one has shea butter? Which one of these has shea butter?
Most of them have shea butter. I have some that have just a lot of olive oil and coconut oil.
Just olive oil, coconut oil by themselves.
Olive oil, coconut oil. Some palm. I have some palm-free soaps. Like this beer soap here is palm free, so it just has a lot of avocado oil. It has a lot of amazing oils, so they're all really great. They're a little bit different, so I don't use the same formula for all of them.
And things like olive oil and coconut oil, those are just great for the skin as well?
Yeah, just amazing for your skin, and they don't have any additives, and if you use just that instead of adding all the detergents and all this other stuff, I mean, you're not going to get the slimy bar of soap they usually get from commercial products.
And when you make a bar of soap, what is the shelf life? Like if I buy a bar of soap, could I use it in a year? Is it just as good, or do they fall apart?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's really, you can use it. It won't last you that long because you'll want to use it, but if you do have it for a year or two, it's still a great bar of soap.
They still say kind of fresh.
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, you might get a little fading. I don't use any colorants in my soap, so I use natural. Like I have a spirulina bar. So the
really?
Yeah, so the spirulina is really nice and bright green, but then over time it kind of starts fading. But that's the only thing. Is it just visually it changes a little bit, but otherwise it's a great bar of soap.
And was the first products you started producing soap? You went soap first?
Yeah, I did. I went soap and very basic bars, and then I started experimenting. I added some have activated bamboo charcoal. I make some with coffee. I make them with certain teas. Like I said, the beer, the spirulina. I have a lot that are made with coconut milk, which gives you a really nice creamy lather, and it's really amazing. So no water, just 100% fresh coconut milk. And yeah, I try to use different things. I have one with pumpkin, when I use actually fresh pumpkin in it, which is amazing when you use it.
Really? What color is that one? Is it kind of pumpkin color?
Yeah, it's actually this one here. It's a little dark right now, but then when you cut it in half, you can see it's like really nice bright orange in the center.
Oh, I see.
So you're actually getting the pumpkin.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And by the way, so you manufacture in Los Angeles, is that it?
Yes, I make them all myself. I don't outsource anything as of right now.
And can I ask, so where can I get these Light of Beauty bars?
I have them. I'm at 7 different stores in the Los Angeles area.
Natural food stores?
Natural food stores. So I'm at Erewhon.
Erewhon's great.
Erewhon's an amazing store. Urban Radish, also in downtown.
Urban Radish, great name for a store, I think.
Right. Yeah, and it's right in the art district, so it's a really great store. I'm at 41 Olive, which is a specialty store that has olive oil and balsamic vinegars. They're amazing. So I actually use their olive oil to make their soap, and you can buy them there. At some other smaller stores, Organics in Eagle Rock and Fresco Community Market in Highland Park.
Okay.
You could also do it online. I'm online at lightofbeauty.com, so you can also order online.
That's great. And what else do you have for me? What exactly is this?
Well, that's a facial cleanser. It's an oil-based facial cleanser, and you can also be used as a makeup remover. It's super moisturizing. I mean, I use it just, if I don't have a moisturizer, I'm not using it, I can just use it directly on my skin. It has organic extra virgin olive oil, castor oil, vitamin E, and I add lavender and rosemary essential oils, which are really great for your skin.
And so this as a makeup remover, so if women didn't use this, what do they use?
It usually over the counter, either, there's a lot of lotions and there's a lot of like pads that you use to remove your makeup, but they have alcohol, they have preservatives, they have just a ton of stuff that you don't want to use.
And alcohol dries the skin?
It absolutely does. Yeah, it dries the skin, it stings. Yeah, it's not something you'd want to use. So as of right now, the only preservative I would use is vitamin E, which is not really a preservative, it's more of an antioxidant for the oils. And I've gotten really amazing feedback.
And so the women are actually maybe a little hesitant to try it, and they try it and they find, oh my God, it's better. It's just better.
Yeah, it's better. I mean, it's a lot better, and it leaves your kid's skin really nice and smooth, and it doesn't leave it dry, so you won't get the dry skin feeling after you take off your makeup and the stinging in the eyes and stuff like that.
Well, that seems important. And may I ask, this is the makeup remover and moisturizer?
It's a facial cleanser, so you can use it just as a cleanser. Just at the end of the day, you've been out, you've just been exposed to the elements. You just kind of want to put it on your skin and then just wipe it off with a warm towel, and it'll feel amazing.
And what does this retail for, can I ask?
Yeah, it's $8.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, so my bars retail mostly for like $6 or so, between $6 and $7 depending on where you purchase them. And that's what my main goal was, is to make it affordable for people. Everyone should have access to chemical-free products, and that was my main thing. Nothing in my line as of right now is over $20. So it's pretty much affordable for anybody to try.
Well, Catherine, that sounds great. Once again, give me the contact information on Light of Beauty.
So it's you can go online and place the order at www.lightofbeauty.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and if you go on our page, you'll also see the retailers that carry our products. And you can email me if you have any questions at Catherine@lightofbeauty.com.
And you'll answer?
I will absolutely answer.
That sounds good. Catherine, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Sure. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Y'all ready for this? Yeah!
Hi, I'm Jerry Bell of the Daz Band in New Birth.
And I'm Brahima Arsalan.
Inviting you to join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Time for Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics, baby.
Join us as we play some of the greatest hits of soul and R&B and listen in to interesting discussions with the legends of the music.
So don't you forget, join us on the Jerry Bell's R&B Soul Classics. You'll love it. Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio.
Or watch us and listen directly at latalklive.com, baby.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure.
This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk, baby. We are music.
Hi, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific, The Angela DeJoseph Show. We're going to talk about health, wealth. We're going to share news, interviews, and entertainment. So don't forget to tune in to The Angela DeJoseph Show, Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Watch and listen directly on latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. Many of us these days recognize that the idea of not wasting is a good idea, of recycling is a good idea, reusing is a good idea. And my next guest is Suzanne Titus, who decided those all were very good ideas, and Suzanne would reuse and recycle and refashion and create fashion, and she has. Suzanne Titus, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Josh.
Fun having you here. And in the background we have, this is a actually very cute looking coffee bag. Is that not right?
It's a coffee sack that carries the raw green beans.
Raw green, even before the roast, this is very lovely. And you got this from El Salvador.
No, actually, I received this from one of our local roasters who donates Handsome Coffee in downtown Los Angeles.
I see. And so you take these are made of burlap?
Jute.
Jute. These are made of jute. And what was your thinking? And by the way, before we talk about these, this lovely bag, which you make from the jute, I'm just going to show this on camera. I think it'll come out pretty nicely. It looks very lovely, and I'm sure it's very durable. So what made you decide to reuse and repurpose and recycle these jute bags?
Well, I was in healthcare as a vendor for 15 plus years and ended a project in early 2012. And at that time, it was a reflection of what I had been doing in my past and wanted to look at the future and kind of tap into my passion and my creativity. I knew about jute and I knew about coffee sacks. And from there, a friendly conversation started. And we discussed the plastic ban on bags.
That's right.
And so from there, it just kind of snowballed. I took about 2 weeks and started calling coffee roasters all over the nation and received enormous response to the project. And so we began getting coffee sacks as far as Massachusetts, Tennessee. And at that point in time, I kind of realized because of the cost that I needed to kind of focus in on our local area, and that being Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County, Inland Empire.
So now these very pretty, actually, because they're cute design. So this is the way, as someone who's going to be roasting coffee, is this a 100-pound sack?
It's 150 pounds.
150 pounds
Yes.
of green coffee in here.
Yes.
Now, and then when they're finished with the coffee, do they used to just throw these away?
Unfortunately,
No kidding.
Unfortunately, a lot of the bags are just tossed. Now, some roasters will connect with different organizations to donate the sacks, but I'm finding out that oftentimes the organizations won't come back for a second or a third time.
I see.
So, and it is an unfortunate situation that a lot of these coffee sacks are just disposed of.
Well, this one actually seems very lovely. And now you made this bag. So you take these green coffee bean 150-pound bags, and then you have artisans who fashion them into carry bags.
Yes, we work with a local manufacturer in Los Angeles who upcycles them into marketplace shopping bags.
Is that the correct term, upcycle?
Repurpose, upcycle into a small market shopper, a large market shopper, and then the bag that you're holding is what we refer to as the beach bag. We've also created a trash cleanup bag for the environmental groups who do beach cleanups.
No kidding.
Yes, and so this is what we're starting with and what we've launched this past July. We do have other designs that we're working on right now. We have wine sacks that'll carry up to 3 and 6 bottles. We have bulk buy bags, which we hope to get into the stores to encourage recycling and less use of plastic bags.
Well, that all seems like a nice idea. And luckily here in Los Angeles, and I guess in California in general, but probably in much of the United States, people think, yeah, this is something that this might be a good idea to be doing this now. It's a good idea.
It is. I mean, we've had a great response to the project. To participate annually, it's a minimum of 120 bags that are purchased, and on every bag there is a bag tag. And when you participate, whoever
You mean, so if I'm a store owner, I can put the name of my store on your bag? Is that what you're saying?
there's a bag tag that you'll see right there in the corner.
See, it says recycle, it says reuse, it says rescue, recycle, and reuse.
Right. And so that bag tag then carries the brand of the marketplace, whether it's a fire department, a library, a college, a grocery store. Any brand can participate in the program.
Any universities participating with you?
We just, what I refer to as started planting seeds at the end of July, which means that we've started sending out press packs. So we're talking with several universities right now, as we are several marketplaces, retail chains. I think everybody gets the bags and they look at where they come from, and they're just kind of surprised at what we're doing. So in the last 35 to 40 days, we've sent out about 45 press packs, and of course, teams are talking about it. How do they carry it? So anybody again can participate in the program.
That seems like a very nice idea. And I guess so. Obviously, you have many different designs that you work with, right?
That is correct. There are no two bags that are alike. We get different bags. This particular bag here is very unique with its design, but there's bags that come from all over the world, and the designs some of them are just amazing. I love that part of the job because every bag, every coffee sack that gets donated, we count that. So when a coffee roaster donates coffee sacks, we keep a running total of how many coffee sacks they've donated. So I have seen an array of coffee sacks, which has been probably the coolest part of the whole project.
Now you said these are made out of jute.
Correct.
And jute is a palm tree? What is jute?
Jute is a plant-based material. It's grown in very tropical environments, and it's grown and then it's harvested and then it's woven together to create the coffee sacks.
And so, is there anything toxic in these bags?
No. In fact, they come with labeling that says food grade and food safe,
Okay, that's important.
which is very important
Sure.
for people, especially when we're dealing with plastics and some of the issues that plastic may, create.
Are you making little tiny bags too, like
We have a smaller
wallets or something? I don't know.
We haven't gotten that far. I think, my focus is to make sure that the bag remains environmentally safe. Not putting a liner of any type of plastic, not putting any type of plastic bottom to keep its shape. These bags go from carrying raw coffee beans to carrying books, food, beach toys, children's toys, anything that you can imagine. And then we encourage people to use them in their garden. So once the bag has come to its end of life or you don't want to use it, we don't want people to throw them in the trash. If they have to go, you can put them in the recycle bin, but we want to encourage people to cut them up and use them in their garden for mulch, composting, or as a top cover to any type of potted plant. Because it is a plant-based material, it then becomes kind of a natural fertilizer.
Huh?
It cuts back on water usage. And then, of course, when it biodegrades, it just kind of turns into the fibers and it just kind of floats away. So 100% environmentally friendly is how I would like to keep it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things won't change in the future.
And if I was to put this in my garden, it's very thin, would it take, 2 years to go away?
Josh, that is something, because the project started in last year, we haven't really followed how long it actually takes to biodegrade. Now, we have recently aligned ourselves with Farm Lot 59, which is a farm lot in Long Beach, California, that's going to accept all of our scraps. My big thing was I didn't want...
I've never heard of that farm lot. What do they do exactly?
Farm Lot 59 is a big parcel of land that grows organic foods and fruits, and they have chickens on the property as well.
Kidding.
Yes, and so they are going to take the scraps, which was very important to me because now we're actually using the entire sack.
Good for you.
So as we grow and as the project grows, we'll be looking for more organic farm lots and places that will be interested in accepting the scraps. And then we'll be able to begin to follow how the biodegradableness actually works and the time frame in which it takes to biodegrade.
That's fantastic. And the design, is this something you came up with? Is just do you have a background in design?
No, I don't. One of our board members has a background in design, and of course, working with our manufacturer, we went through a couple iterations of the bag to make sure that the bag is sturdy. These bags themselves can hold up to, I did my own little testing with them over a period of time, and the most I got into one bag was 82 pounds. So
82 pounds, really?
Yes, and it would have been a very costly little test because it was full of groceries and bottles and things like that.
Okay, that's great. And again, you have 3 different sizes.
Correct.
Right. And where can we get these bags?
Currently, right now, they're at the Urban Radish in downtown Los Angeles. Urban Radish is a neighborhood grocery store that's rooted in tradition. And so they have a very strong sense of organic, and also, they have a strong sense for our environment. We went to them originally, like we did with many people, with the press packs, and for their grand opening on August 17th, we were invited to come in and be a vendor. And for us, it was a great success. We saw the support for the idea and for the causes, and they have the bags in right now, and they are selling. So it's a
that's very nice.
Yes, it's very positive to see.
And Suzanne, what does this retail for? We haven't discussed that.
We have the small bag that retails for $14.99, the large is $19.99, and then the beach bag that you have is $24.99.
Well, that all seems very reasonable.
It is, especially because we're putting the monies into causes. We want to raise awareness for Alzheimer's and for our environment. And I think when people understand what we're doing, they have the same compassion that we do for trying to, make people aware of some of the issues that are at hand today.
And how can we contact you directly?
You could contact me directly through our website, which is www.rescuerecyclereuse.org, or you can call our office at 323-455-4025, and that'll put you directly in touch with the organization.
And the organization, is this a nonprofit? What kind of organization?
It is a nonprofit organization, and as I mentioned, the causes that we've identified are Alzheimer's and our environment. And I didn't set this up as a normal nonprofit aligning ourselves with a specific organization because the potential for revenue, I think, allows us to give back to a lot of different organizations that are focused on raising awareness and research.
Well, Suzanne, that sounds great. I appreciate you being a guest today on Here's to Your Health with this great idea of kind of an art project.
Yes.
That recycles in a very nice way. So thank you for being a guest today on my show.
Josh, thanks for having me.
It's been fun. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, this is Angela DeJoseph. Join me Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific for the Angela DeJoseph Show. Join me as we venture into health, wealth. We're going to give you news, interviews, and entertainment. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, Live 365, Radio Flag, TiVo Radio, and now live on Facebook. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
My clothes ain't all fancy, and my car ain't brand new, but there is joy in my house.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid
and no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Barbara Perkins, inviting you to join us every Sunday afternoon at 2:40 for Sisters at the Well Radio, a conversation with women about women. Join us as we share stories about current events, jazz events, business opportunities, health and wellness, entertainment, and so much more. So don't forget to tune in Sundays at 2:40, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, radio flag, or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live television network. My co-host, Dr. Hans Kugler, is my guest this half hour. And Dr. Kugler, of course, is a PhD at Stony Brook and has been very important in the field of anti-aging. As a matter of fact, in the United States, Hans is one of the most influential men in the field of anti-aging, and that's not hyperbole, that's just kind of the way it is. And Dr. Kugler continues to be very active with a number of different ideas about wellness. But first, I'd like to get Dr. Hans Kugler's thinking about the idea of calories. So our guest is Dr. Hans Kugler.
A calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie.
Right.
That is
now Dr. Kugler, when I hear some people on television, they say, no, calories in, calories out, and that's all there is to it. But there is a growing body of evidence that indeed that is misinformation that they're saying.
It's total misinformation. Just visualize this. Calories and calories? Well, let's say if you live on sugar only, that's just calories.
Right.
Or you have the same number of calories in terms of protein. What do you think the effect would be on your body? Okay, if you're on sugar only, you would put that sugar into your body, your blood sugar goes up like crazy, your body says, what the heck is going on here? You better release insulin. The insulin brings the blood sugar down. You get that urge for sugars and for sweets. And if you are not really having any other nutrients in this, just the sugar alone, your body needs amino acids all the time. And so your body is actually forced to take a lean muscle mass, muscle, organ protein apart into the amino acids to supply the minimum required amino acids. I mean, it's the biggest mess. It leads into everything else from immune functions to disorders, depression. Great degree of depression is induced by excess sugar. And I mean, you could talk 5 hours on that. As a matter of fact, the best thing is actually if people would Google Sugar, the Bitter Truth by Robert Lustig, magnificent guy. Not only because he has a German background, right?
That helps.
He is Davis University, very famous professor of chemistry, actually in pediatrics. Magnificent. I bet you start listening to this, you won't be able to quit.
Now, the information just offered to the listeners seemed very clear and good science. So how can some physicians and others and other scientists say, no, it's all calories? Why are they still saying that?
Well, there is something to that. Let's say the bottom line when it comes to weight loss or gain, right? I mean, yes, we have to count calories. I mean, you can't just live on 5,000 calories for sugar and lose weight or something like this. It must make some sense, right? But when you get closer to defining the details, nutrition incorporates everything from the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and each one has calories, right? I mean, for example, sugar, right? And protein have about 4 calories per gram.
I did not know that. Sugar has how many calories per gram?
Four sugar and protein, 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So sure enough, in fat there's twice as many calories, But this whole thing is it gets confusing once you get down to the nitty-gritty details. And if you really wanted to know more, again, Robert Lustig's Sugar the Bitter Truth, or you go to the internet and you Google metabolic pathways. Metabolic pathways are those pathways in your body that will actually point you in the direction where to go. It's like we're going from here to there, and there's no other way to go. And those are metabolic pathways. This is like our proof for the science of what we are saying, right?
Now, if I'm not, because I'm not a scientist, if I had someone on who said,
you know a lot about science, that is definite.
If I had a guest on who was of the position that, no, it's just calories, and I said to them, but if I live on 3,000 calories a day of vodka, will I be healthy? Would they be mad at me? Would they think I am baiting them?
I would think this is a really good idea because it would prove to them that they are totally ridiculous in their thinking.
Right, exactly. If I drink 3,000 calories a day of vodka, I look at 3,000 calories or 2,000 calories, whatever, but I am not going to be a healthy guy.
You're going to be happy the first 20 minutes.
For the first 20 minutes, yeah, right. My blood sugar goes up and then down, I will be,
then you're going to lay on the floor, and the next day you have a hell of a hangover.
Right.
And if you actually follow through on metabolic pathways, you would find that about 80% of them totally disturbed by this approach. And the next thing is sugar. It's very simple.
So you're making a comment here about alcohol itself being problematic for our health and sugar being problematic.
Totally.
And this is all based on, and by the way, your PhD is in what again?
Biochemistry. Actually, organophosphorus chemistry. That's what's going on in your body, the metabolic reactions, RNA, DNA, and this kind of stuff.
And you have your degree and your PhD from Stony Brook.
Stony Brook, which is now recognized as the number 1 school in the world in the medical sciences.
Right. Yeah, an important school. And then you had postdoctoral work where? At Stony Brook?
Also at Stony Brook, and then I was professor of chemistry at Roosevelt University in Chicago. I taught at several different schools. Now I am president and founder of the International Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, a acknowledged by state of California 501c-3 charitable nonprofit health education organization.
And so because you are a co-host and because you have a certain position, I always like to ask this question about eating sugar. If someone is listening to you today on the radio, someone just starting out with wellness, and they stop eating processed sugar, is that one of the smartest things they can do?
Definitely. Along with the sugar, I also want you to read the labels. And if it says HFCS, high fructose corn syrup. See, fructose, they say, oh, well, it's just another natural sugar. That is just a total nonsense, right? High fructose corn syrup is a sweetener. And it actually, referred to as Japan's revenge to World War II, because it was actually discovered in Japan. It's about 20 times as sweet as anything else. And, they're putting it on everything. I mean, I had people checking their labels. I do health practice counseling at the Health Integration Center in Torrance, right? Anti-aging.
So you're at the, what's the name again?
A Health Integration Center in Torrance. We're close to Hawthorne and Sepulveda.
You work with Dr. Murray Susser there and David Wong, two MDs.
Yeah, Dr. David Wong, right, is the head of the center. And I do anything from health practices to anti-aging counseling. Right. Now, the anti-aging counseling, there's now companies out there, they will take you on in a whole big project, and they will charge you at the beginning $5,000 and then $1,200 per month, right?
Really?
And then you can get the same results if you go to my website and you read my book, Lifelong Health, right? Because it's structured the same way. We start out with the health practices, and people used to say, oh, health practices, it just has got nothing to do with aging, right? No. Telomere research is a very important part of aging research, has now demonstrated that good health practices are true anti-aging modalities.
And good health practices means exercise and watching what you're eating.
And detoxing. And watching what kind of environment you're in, and watching where your food comes in. For example, I would never drink anything out of plastic, right? I mean, there are some newer types of plastic, but it will say on the bottle that it does not contain any BPA. BPA, bisphenol A, it's a plastic hardener.
Right.
And that stuff interferes with endocrine system like amazing. Like this whole endocrine system, we have now in kids, we have girls as early as age 7 going to puberty.
Right.
I mean, and boys, smaller penises. I mean, it is disgusting what's happening in this field.
And this has been happening for the past, 30, 40 years?
Oh, yeah. Especially recently. I mean, it seems the more we know about it, how dangerous it is, especially in the area of cancer. I mean, we're learning a lot about that,
Yes,
right?
we are, yes.
About how much the wool has been pulled over our eyes from that,
Right.
you know. But especially in respect to high fructose corn syrup, you know, we know fructose, no, it's not just another natural sugar. In your body, literally, every cell can metabolize regular sugar, right? Glucose and so on and so on. When it comes to fructose, only the liver can metabolize the fructose, and it is immediately converted to fat. So you're winding up with a fatty liver, which does not work very well. It interferes with some very important reactions like NOS. NOS, well, what is this? Well, NOS is nitric oxide synthetase. Nitric oxide is a very important chemical in your body that determines anything from blood sugar, immune function, sexuality. You know, like Viagra is based on this principle, right?
Yes.
And Viagra stimulates nitric oxide formation. But after the age of 40, nitric oxide tremendously decreases. And in order to make that nitric oxide in your body is an enzyme called NOS, nitric oxide synthetase. Every enzyme ends in ending ASE, right? And it affects that. But nobody really does anything about it. Well, we need to.
Well, the wellness people that you represent, there's a lot of thinking in that area now. So it's would you say that compared to say 10 years ago, things are much better? Well, as far as a concern for the environment and as far as food and exercise, isn't that your opinion?
Well, it's getting better on one hand because we have all that information available on the internet and so on. Like we are learning a lot about how real cures for cancer were available.
Yes.
30, 40 years ago. Right? And instead of acknowledging that, they took these doctors to court and they locked them up. Right? We learn more about environmental factor, how important that is. I would say if you have a good brain, you know how to think, use it, and you have the big advantage. But in respect to the environment, I mean, we really have to do something about this. I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous what's happening there.
No, the environment is, and there seems to be kind of always a new something to worry about. You've been doing some studying recently on problems with fracking in California. Do you have a few comments on that?
Oh, definitely. Actually, there's a bill that Governor Brown is supposed to sign. It's called SB4.
SB4.
It's totally ridiculous. I mean, it gives the fracking industry so many different things. See, basically, what is fracking? Fracking is the process of releasing natural gas in shale. They pump into the ground water and chemicals and finely ground sand, and it releases the methane, natural gas. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, if you look at the fracking chemicals that they are using, you actually get pretty much convinced that this is the way the chemical industry is disposing of the most toxic chemicals ever.
No kidding.
I mean, yes. And
into our water supply.
Right, into our water. They're using several millions of gallons of water per well. Now, for a short time, I probably was affected by the Chicago pollution. With my brain, I worked for Standard Oil of Indiana, south side of Chicago.
And what did you do for Standard Oil?
Actually, I was in agricultural chemistry. Right? I mean, it's looked at first as if they were concerned about what the chemicals and the pesticides do to the environment. And so I took the job, and then I recognized they just wanted me to make more pesticides, right? I mean, they just wanted to utilize my name into this one.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, that was just totally ridiculous. I mean, I went to one of the big meetings. They always send you to meetings, and that was pretty nice. And the meetings that I wanted to go to until they recognized that, hey, this guy's going to all the alternative and really not exactly in support of oil
And they
industry.
weren't happy with you then.
Well, anyway, I went to one of the meetings, and there was an absolutely attractive lady, and I thought, God, what can I say to her? I was thinking about what I could say to her, and I zoomed into her area, into her direction, and guess what? She goes up on the stage. She's the next speaker. She was a lady from Canada, a professor over there, who radiated plants with sound. And we did this, the plants grew much faster, they germinated faster, they spread the leaves faster, they take the sunlight away, and you didn't need any herbicides. Oh, God, how could you say this? I mean, the oil industry, to come up with a process that they wouldn't have to sell pesticides anymore, herbicides. So anyway, when I went back to Standard Oil.
What year was that?
1974, something like that.
Oh my God, that was a long time
ago. Right. So anyway, when I get back to Standard Oil of Indiana in Whiting, just south of Chicago, I activated 2 greenhouses. I used all my research money, all my fellow friends' research money. I mean, we fudged a lot of things, but in support of the good cause, right? And I had one greenhouse with sound waves, and the other one no sound waves. You wouldn't believe it. For example, any kind of corn or soy or anything radiated with sound would be about that high, while no sound would about that high. I mean, a 200% increase. 3,000, 8,000 cycles per second. 3,000, 8,000, 9,000 cycles per second, right?
I have no idea what that means. You tell me.
Okay,
it wasn't like we played Beethoven for them and they liked it.
Well, we could do that. It's very simple because it contains some of the same frequency. But they're actually, I had a German mechanic build me oscillators that make that sound. It's very simple, right? And the plants.
No kidding.
Actually, probably a little bit of vibration stimulate the germination and they grow faster, right? And I got absolutely magnificent results, right? I mean, everybody came and watched us and says, wow, this is amazing. I was in Chicago. I was on
this is for Standard Oil you're doing
Midnight Kennedy, you know. And then my fellow, apparently, bigwigs at Standard Oil learned about all those things they're doing. And then I was called into the office and I thought, oh, man, they're going to give me an award. I'm going to get a raise, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the very first thing what they were saying is, well, you know, reminding me that I was under contract and anything that I wanted to publish would have to be okayed by them, and parentheses, most likely you were not going to get that one, right? Anyway,
all right.
So next day I called this lady in Canada. We had communicated a lot, and I said, you know what? They told me I cannot publish that. If I treat this and this, such and such a sound, it will go this and this. And I'm not allowed to tell you if I do this and this and this and this. Oh, okay, and what else are you not allowed to tell me? And I told her everything, right? And then I was called into my boss, right, and I went to his office. And the very first thing, I mean, besides reminding me of this, and he said, oh, by the way, we have a little bit of problem with an emulsifier in one of our agricultural applications. We need to isolate that. We want you to do that. And then we're going to feed it to 20 beagles, and the autopsies of the beagles will tell us. I said to the number one man in research over there, I mean, are you crazy? I mean, don't you know I'm an animal nut? And this method is Frankensteinish. I mean, there's much better ways of doing something like this.
Okay,
you know?
What is a better way instead of killing 20 beagles? Scientifically, what's better?
Oh, you can just take any extract from anything that you have. You put it into a very simple cell culture that you grow. And you see how the cell culture grows. I mean, there's so many different ways.
Wait, so you're saying that there are some people who are opposed to animal experimentation. Mm-hmm. But the mainstream guys come back and say, listen, we do this experimentation on rabbits or beagles because this keeps humans safer. Are you saying that there's scientifically better ways to test this, make sure that items are safe, and we don't have to kill beagles or rabbits? We don't have to? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, definitely. No question about it.
And it's better science, too, in your opinion?
I, in my own research at Roosevelt University in Chicago, we use animals. We grew Swiss albino mice. They were grown to grow cancer at the same rate and same percentage as humans.
What kind of mice were those again? What kind of mice?
They're called Swiss albino. I mean, white mice from Jackson Laboratory. And but here's the key thing: we had the controls, and the animals that were given anything extra to live and make them live longer. right? And the results that we got there were just absolutely magnificent. Like, for example, we divide our animals into 3 groups. There's one group of animals subject to a lot of mistakes people make, including blowing cigarette smokes from the cages. And then we had controls, and then the animals were made to do exercise. And out of all this work comes, if you do the same experiment without the exercise on the positive side, you will find that the results, which were 100% difference in average lifespans,
100% difference.
They dropped by 50%. I mean, it really shows how important exercise is, right, especially muscle exercises. You know what is the strongest factor now in preventing cognitive losses as we get older, memory loss? Weightlifting. Weightlifting. I mean, not
seems
really.
Simple enough, doesn't it?
You don't have to do tons of weight, I mean, just muscle work, right? So.
And anyway. is that use of exercise, lifting weights, is that pretty widely recognized now?
Oh yeah. It's coming around. I mean,
and you were one of the first guys, or were you the first person to really kind of document that?
Well, no, actually,
Manuel Sharaskin, were you a teacher?
Yes, Sharaskin, Alabama University School of Medicine, my mentor, genius, et cetera. We did a lot of projects together. For example, we demonstrated that lifelong health, optimum health, is also synonymous with best immune functions, best recovery from any kind of disease, right? Fitness, sexuality, and so on and so on. But coming back a little bit to the fracking here, right?
In California, yes.
See, fracking, the industry will quickly point out to you that we're using so and so many millions of gallons of water, with the fracking wells, but we're only using about 2 to 4% of the chemicals. Well, only if you actually evaluate that and you look at the numbers, you will find that it amounts to about 100 to 400 tons of toxic brew per well. And
100 to 400 tons of chemicals.
Right.
Oh my
and
goodness.
water. The water that is wasted. And it's put right into the deep, deep groundwater. It does not decompose there. It will be there in 1,000 years. And we already have problems with water. I mean, around the world, we are going very deep into the ground to recover water, especially in areas like Africa and where we have desert areas and so on. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous what they're doing. I mean,
and they're doing it, of course, they are extracting natural gas, etc., correct? And so that's kind of a good thing. And they're making us a ton of money, and they don't really care. Is that it? They don't really care?
Here's the thing. When I worked at Standard Oil in Indiana as a research chemist, we were also informed about a lot of the other projects, and I learned about fracking at that time already.
Really?
Well,
35 years ago?
Guess what? Water and finely ground sand will do it. There's no need for those fracking chemicals.
And you're saying that they're using these fracking chemicals as legitimate use of way to dump the chemicals?
Sure. Because
oh my God.
chemical industry would have to pay dearly in order to dispose of them. That costs a lot of money. Right. Oh, there's so much dirty business going on in the big special interests. It is just absolutely ridiculous. We recently found that there was an oil conglomerate that spent close to $100 million over the past few years to seed thoughts that, environmental change is a bunch of nonsense, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. In the U.S. alone, we produce about 35 billion pounds of CO2 every day. Now, normally...
Every day?
Yes, every day.
Wow.
Now, normally, when you form CO2, you burn something that it was trees and oceans that pick up the CO2 and they balance it. Oh, that was another one of the arguments. But they don't tell you that it is demonstrated that several universities, including a California university, San Diego, that it showed when the CO2 increases, it actually becomes toxic to the plant and the plant shuts down. That's number one.
Uh-huh.
And number two, in the oceans, we have so much ocean acidification that the oceans are dying, right? And they want to keep burning all the stuff, especially coal. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. I mean, our oceans are so polluted that even orthodox standard governments are saying to women, if you're pregnant, don't eat fish anymore. I mean, go back to the Bible. What is the most important part to feed the people? It's the oceans, the fish. It's the healthiest food there is, right?
Right, absolutely.
And now we're poisoning us, right? With so-called clean coal. This is a joke. I mean, there's no clean coal. Right. What they're doing is they're taking coal, they're stripping a little bit of the mercury, the arsenic, the cadmium off, and then they're burning it. Still, in the U.S. alone, we're adding 50 tons of mercury alone into the groundwater and into the oceans. Right? And then we are selling the coal raw to China, right. And we are buying products made in China because they're cheap. And why is it cheap? Because they just give a damn about everything, apparently, and they're burning the coal raw as it is. And they're putting about 150 tons of mercury right into our oceans. Oh, it's a mess. Who would believe it?
Well, those seem like very serious issues. For those of you just tuning in, we're speaking with Dr. Hans Kugler, Ph.D. out of Stony Brook. And Dr. Kugler will be here in the next segment. I'm your host, Josh Lane. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back with Dr. Hans Kugler after these important messages.
Walk, run, climb, play. Solgar number 7 can help. Feel the difference for yourself. Solgar number 7 actually shows improvement in joint comfort within 7 days. Now you can start to get back on track fast and pursue the activities you love. Solgar number 7 is a breakthrough in joint care with no glucosamine and no chondroitin. The advanced bioactives in Solgar number 7 help to increase flexibility, mobility, range of motion, and actually shows improvement within just 7 days. One capsule, once a day, is all you need. When stiff joints occasionally say no, Solgar number 7 says yes. Visit Solgar.com and learn more about Solgar number 7 today. That's www.solgar.com, www.solgar.com. Solgar number 7, official sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live.
In the burgeoning field of anti-aging medicine, Dr. Hans Kugler, professor at Roosevelt University in Chicago, and president of the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine in California, has been on the cutting edge. The author of Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes to Stay Young with Age, and now the host of Here's to Your Health, Dr. Hans Kugler.
Well, I have a magnificent guest for you today. Let me tell you a little bit story at first. Many, many years ago, back in Germany, I was in the military and we were on maneuvers and I was hanging outside a 2-story building and the bad guys were coming and I looked down and I thought, this is soft ground. I can do that. And I let go and I jumped down there and it turned out that it was concrete with a little bit of dirt drizzled on it. And I didn't think about it that I had a 50-pound pack on my back. And from then on, my lower back got worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, it sometimes got so bad that we went water skiing on the weekend, and the next day I was paralyzed. So I went to a good friend of mine, John Thie, who was a professor at Chiropractic College, right? And he looked me over and he said, "Oh yeah, we can fix you up there." And he examined me and he determined what way to adjust me. And he said to this young female chiropractor was just graduating, Diane, come over here, and this is what we're going to do, etc., etc. And he showed her how to adjust me. And since then, I've been going to Dr. Diane Jordan on a regular basis, and she fixed me up, and it just feels absolutely magnificent when I go through an adjustment. Okay, Diane, welcome here.
Thank you.
Diane is a doctor of chiropractic in the South Bay area, actually in Redondo Beach. And in very many different areas, very aggressive in her thinking. Like, I was talking about it some time ago that I had this extreme side impact car accident, right? And the police came, they brought me to Torrance Memorial, and the paramedics thought I had a broken neck and a broken spine. And all the doctors and the police said, man, the only reason why you're alive is because you have a lot of muscles and so on and so on. And they examined me, and thank God it wasn't, thank you. Anyway, it wasn't a broken neck and a broken spine that let me go home, but it really got worse and worse and downhill. And I saw Diane on a regular basis. And Diane actually went on her own money to meetings to find out how to treat me and how to help me with my problems. And it got better and better and better. And as we all know, I am totally recovered. And my hard recovery was published in a very well-known medical journal. It's also in the textbook, and so on and so on. And Diane, if you weren't in my life, I probably feel miserable. So welcome on the show. And
Thank you so much.
Tell us a little bit more about, let's say, what's emphasis with you in your work?
Well, I'd just like to refer back to when I started learning about nutrition was when I worked for Jack LaLanne. So this goes back to 1971 for me. So
let's not tell him so much how old we are.
Okay. So one of my areas of specialty, and I do 16 different techniques in my office, is neurological reeducation with cold lasers. So one of the things that I was really learning about with your case was how all of those nerves can affect your heart. So with that side impact, it really affected the nerves in your upper back, which affected your heart. So this wonderful, typical chiropractic just works with the spinal nerve roots, and we're looking for interference there. But quantum neurology has expanded to move all the way up to the top of the brain, the neocortex, and looks for interference anywhere in this neurological system. So we can really get the body communicating on a much deeper level using cold lasers. So that's one of my favorite techniques these days.
Well, there's also, I know you use a lot of other, for example, the breast thermography, right?
Right.
That is one of the areas. As a matter of fact, very recently I talked to a very famous doctor in cancer treatments, and he says, well, if you do your regular examinations with, radiation tests and so on, you greatly increase your risk of cancer. On the other hand, with the thermography, it's very little. How about?
Right. So thermography was infrared technology was of course developed with the military and the U.S. government. It was declassified in 1959, and it was used to detect early breast cancer in the late 50s and the 60s in France and Canada. It was brought to America in the 70s, and it was FDA approved the same year, 1982, as mammograms were. And it is a digital infrared photograph that looks for physiological changes. So a mammogram and an ultrasound look for lumps and bumps and calcifications. A thermogram looks for physiological changes. So cancer needs to eat sugar, so it grows itself blood vessels to feed itself. The blood vessels show up as patterns of blood vessels, and they also give off heat. So we're looking for heat differences and blood vessel differences from side to side. And we can see those changes 5 to 8 years before anything would show up on a mammogram.
Yeah, we just talked a little bit before about a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. So how would that affect if, let's say, if some doctor tells you, oh, it doesn't make any difference, 1,000 calories of this or that makes no difference. How about 1,000 calories in sugar? How would that affect that?
Well, that would actually stimulate the growth of that cancer, most likely.
Totally, most likely.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, that's just common sense and logic,
Right.
right? Yeah. Well, in the anti-aging medicine field, like the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and the organization that I founded with other people, right, International Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, a very important group of professionals are chiropractors. Well, why? Because you guys have much more sense than some of these other so-called health professionals. And what I found very, very fascinating, especially in the last few months, thank God, to the information highway on YouTube and everything else, we are learning about all these different special interests that kept everything under control and literally kept us sick, having cancer, that there are cancer cures were available many, many years ago that were totally ignored. And not only that, the doctors that developed them were locked up, in jail for that. Do you have any experience, any thoughts along those lines? Or,
Well, I think we just have to follow the money is generally what that shows. And it makes me sad that natural healing, I think probably witches were burned at the stake because they wanted to heal people naturally as well. So I think this goes back a long time.
Yeah, but then also Orthodox medicine gets a little bit too cocky. Like there was a time many years ago when I believe it was the American Medical Association, right? They just kept bad-mouthing chiropractors, and you guys were able to prove that. And that came out into the public, and exposed it and really showed a lot of the connections to special interests.
It took 4 chiropractors 14 years to prove that. And what they found was that for 20 years, the AMA spent $1 million a year calling chiropractors quacks. And so they did that for 20 years, and it really was a very successful propaganda campaign.
Well, in different areas, the money just has increased. Like we just found out that a certain conglomerate of the oil industries have spent over the past few years $100 million in seeding information that, this environmental change and so on is just total nonsense, right? I mean, the ice caps are disappearing. Texas is dying, right? I mean, Texas, the cattle farmers, they're bringing their major breeding cattle to Canada to survive. Southern states with water, they were drowning in water. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's happening, and nobody was really paying attention to it. Huh? Anyway, but let's get back to your work, what you're doing nowadays, and what's really at your heart, and what you really think can benefit people.
The other technique that is one of my favorites is called neuro-emotional technique. And this goes back to a combination of chiropractic, Chinese medicine, and homeopathy. And instead of just looking for interference in the structure in the nervous system, this technique also looks for interference with emotional toxins. So what the National Institute of Health found out was that we actually physically, literally store emotions in our nerve proteins, in our neuropeptides. And this technique, we shorten it to NET, actually can help the body release these neuropeptides through the lymphatic system. It's a very gentle, honoring technique to help remove old toxic debris, emotional debris. So if you have a pain in your neck that won't go away from traditional chiropractic, you might really have somebody really might be a pain in the neck. You have emotions stuck in your neck.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend, but she was a real pain in the you-know-what. And I don't know if that was stored in memory and peptides in my body. When I finally got around to saying, no, this is it, forget about this, I'm going to ride my horse, I'm going to fly my airplane, and whenever I think about it, I'm going to get drunk. No, not really. But at that point, it got better.
So this technique is so successful at getting the emotional debris out that it's actually being taught in 2 medical schools. It's being studied in Oxford in England and the Mayo Clinic in Australia. And about 30% of the students are psychologists and psychiatrists. So it's a very wonderful way of helping remove and reduce emotional turmoil. So for example, if people have cancer, one of the things that's very debilitating is the fear. So we can really help reduce the level of fear.
Magnificent. Yeah. Well, I remember, God, I mean, how long? It's been quite some time that people knew about this, that actually data in our memory was stored in the form of peptides, right? And this is a totally fascinating area.
I believe it's at least 30 years. The technique is celebrating its 25th anniversary this month, actually.
Okay. So in your work, right now, what's your emphasis?
My emphasis is definitely quality of life. So I've been in practice for 32 years. And my father, who was brilliant,
32 years?
32 years.
You don't look older than 39. Come on.
He died with dementia. He basically lost his brain. My grandmother lived to be 97, and she had a very lucid mind, but she could not walk. So I realized that I didn't want to just work with the structure for people. I want to get their brains working as well. So my focus is the brain and the body. So there's been identified 6 different nutritional pathways that feed the brain, not just the neurotransmitters, but oxygen, nitric oxide, methylation pathway. There's 6 different pathways, and there's a lot of different nutritional support in addition to the exercise, which I hear you talk about 50% of our health. But so there's a lot that we can do to help keep the body healthy and the brain healthy, so that we can literally, we baby boomers can have a wonderful quality of life till the day we drop. That's really my goal now.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, Dresden University in Germany just came out with a big publication showing that at 80 plus, you can rebuild lean body mass, you can stay healthy, active, etc., etc. And along those lines, we learned that, for example, muscle exercises are the strong factors in preventing cognitive losses. But you mentioned nitric oxide.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a very important molecule, right? I mean, it was years ago. When was it? No, it was about 25 years ago. 3 researchers discovered it. It's a very small molecule, nitrogen and oxygen, in our body, in our blood, and that controls everything from heart function, immune function, sexuality, and so on and so on. And after the age of 40, it quickly decreases. And many of us, we were looking for supplements to put together a supplement to increase that nitric oxide, right? And as a matter of fact, in my work, I looked everywhere. I mean, actually, I talked to a friend of mine, Dr. Freyes from Heidelberg University, the guy who makes the embryonic cell extracts and so on. And everybody said, no, so what we have available so far now is just sodium nitrate and nitrite, and that's a little bit toxic, and don't do it. And I didn't, right? And then I think in 98, 2 researchers got Nobel Prize for it, for the discovery. And only in Texas, at Texas University, a lady by the name of Dr. Janet Zand, and with a co-worker, they were able to take 2 plant extracts together with some vitamin B12, and it's a fruity lozenge. And if you take that, you can actually, with a saliva, what the doctors have, the saliva test sticks, you can measure within 25 minutes of taking one of those lozenges, your nitric oxide levels actually increase. I would actually say this is one of the most important discoveries in the past 15, 20 years,
Well, and if that can help reduce strokes and heart attacks, it's incredibly important, and help blood pressure. So many problems can be helped with that, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So I have those strips in my. You introduced me to them, and I have those strips, and I test all my patients.
Yeah, well, this is the most important part. I mean, the real good health education, to go back to the basics, right? And that's really where medicine is totally lacking. And I didn't really plan to bring this up, but in the last couple of days, I learned that there were a number of chiropractors very much involved in exposing a lot of the, let's say, the real problems with that cancer treatments and real good treatments were available for a very long time, but they were suppressed and not available to people, and the doctors who had tried to do that, they were actually taken to court and, treated as quacks and sent to jail and so on and so on. That's actually the nice part nowadays, with all the information that we have available on the internet and YouTube and so on, and nobody can really, pull one over on us.
Right.
I mean, they're sure trying hard, right?
Yeah. Several years ago, one of my patients had stomach cancer and breast cancer, and she was kept alive for about 9 years by a doctor down in Mexico. And the feds, they did a sting operation, and they got him on some kind of like mail fraud charge, and they brought him to Texas and put him in jail. At the same time, Jeffrey Dahmer was in jail. So Jeffrey Dahmer's on 8 people, and he had $5 million bail. And this doctor, who had saved many lives, his bail was $5 million. And they kept him in jail for 2 years, and then they let him out. But they made him promise never to say anything about treating cancer again. So that's some of the things that have gone on.
Isn't it sad when this
Yeah.
happens?
Yeah.
It is so distressing. But you know what? In many different areas, we think about Europe as more open-minded, but it really gets worse and worse and worse. I had some very strong contacts in Germany, for example. Would you believe it? If you are a treating doctor over there, the government wants you to document every patient by name, address, and everything else, and disorder. And the government can go into your computers without even asking you for permission and take all those data. I mean, this is just ridiculous, you know. I mean, this friend of mine at Tübingen University over there, that was very effective in, you know, helping to reverse my heart problems and so on. They developed something known as embryonic cell extracts, right? And they are just totally distressed over it because very rich people from not only Saudi Arabia, from everywhere around the world coming to them. And the basic idea is, hey, we know what's going on in your country. I would like to be your patient and treatment and no recording of anything, and I will pay you cash. Oh, and the German government just goes crazy over that. No. But before we maybe touch into some other things, okay, give us a little bit more information. Where are you located? What's your telephone number? Do you have a website, or how can we reach you? And
I'd be happy to. My website is www.drdianejordan.com. That's DRDIANE Jordan, JORDAN.com. And I'm in South Redondo, just a couple blocks from the beach. Our phone number is 310-375-4039. That's 310-375-4039. And the month of October, we call Breast Health Awareness Month. Instead of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it's Breast Health Awareness Month. And we're offering our breast thermograms at the lowest price of the year for just $159. Normally it's $195. So we really invite everyone that wants to prevent breast cancer to give us a call.
Okay, tell us a little bit more about this. I know we touched on it before, but people may have just describe a little bit more
All right.
what you're doing there.
So breast thermography is literally coming and sitting into a room. You disrobe in a very private space, and your body acclimates to the temperature of the room, which is about 68 degrees. So if you have any hot spots in your breast, they'll show up more readily. And then we take 6 to 8 pictures of your breast. It's just literally having a photograph taken. It's just an infrared photograph. And then we have them interpreted by a certified professional interpreter, and we get the report back to you within a week.
And there's no radiation or none of this?
No radiation, no compression. It's effective for large-breasted women and small-breasted women. It's effective for young women. So it's effective for women that have had mastectomies and have been radiated, that they don't want any more radiation. So this is a perfect way to monitor their health. So we have people that have family histories of cancer. So we bring the daughters in, 18, 20 years old, and we monitor them every few years because we can see if anything's changing way before anything's going to show up on a mammogram. So that then the key, I tell people, no matter what happens, what you find, the next thing to do is stimulate your immune system. Work on improving your immune, doing one more thing that's going to be helpful for your body, for your immune system.
Well, along those immune systems, naturally in our work, we very much focus on detoxing. You know, that is one of the most important part, you know. In respect to immune functions, we found that there are approximately 50 to 70 chemicals in an adult body of age 45 or 50 or older. And they accumulate and accumulate. And the Narconon people were able to show that. They did the mass spec analysis. Like mass spec is one of the king of all analytical machines, right? And they spend a lot of money on that, and we're not able to identify each one of those chemicals, but also by the amount. And whenever one uses the detox method, sauna-based niacin, then it gets eliminated via that process. Well, I mean, your skin is your second kidneys, right? We all know that. And it goes back quite some time when there was an argument over drug rehab. And basically, everybody else was, oh, just say no, just say no. And the knocking on people were saying, come on, that's a bunch of nonsense. These drug metabolites are in your body, and they will actually make and induce a person to do drugs again, and so on and so on. And we need to compare this and so on. Well, finally, what they did was they documented the effectiveness of the only, just say no. Well, guess what? 11%. And when they included that, when they combine that with a detox, that is, you either build up to 1.5 grams of niacin, makes your skin prickly and flush, and a lot of people have gone and run to the emergency room for that, but it's actually relatively harmless. But in the meantime, we also found that you can take a non-flushing niacin. So if you take about 1.5 grams of non-flushing niacin amide, or niacin hexanicotinate, that's the chemist in me, whatever, and and you do that, do some exercise, and then you sit in the sauna and sweat, and within, I would say, 6 weeks, within 6 weeks of 2 sessions of sweating per week, you dump about 2/3 of those chemicals from your body, and you greatly improve immune functions. And when they did that, guess what the effectiveness went up to? From 11% to close to 80%.
Wow.
That is effective, right?
Wow.
And, it just makes total sense,
That's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely magnificent. On the other hand, we have so many different methods that people call, detoxing, and you eat a little bit fiber, it just scrapes your digestive tract. That's really all what it does, You've got to be a little bit more serious when it comes to that. And, any of these things, you have more questions, you go to my website, drhanskugler.com, drhanskugler.com. There are many references to what we talked about before, the detoxing, my book, which is now available for $7 due to the nonprofit organization, talks all about all these things. And now, again, give us your phone numbers, your address, and so on and so on.
Okay, my name is Diane Jordan. The website is drdianejordan.com. My phone number is 310-375-4039. My address is 1848 South Elena Avenue in Redondo Beach.
That's very close to PCH and very easy to find.
Yes, it is.
All right. Anyway, Diane, it was a great pleasure to have here.
Thank you so much, Hans.
Got to do it again.
Great to be
And,
here.
whatever you find out there, we'll spread the word.
Great.
Okay. So, sometimes in the future, I have a lot of plans for all you people out there to participate in different things. We will focus on not only the detoxing, but real causes of aging, right? There's telomere research now that actually has documented and proven that good health practices are true anti-aging modalities. And we used to say exercise and nutrition and so on and so on. No, now we have exercise. And then number 2 is detoxing. Detoxing is so important. And then we have nutrition, and we go into all the other different areas, and we have many sessions where we will talk about all these details. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you.
For more information about the guests and sponsors of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, please call us at 818-707-0005.